I was running behind this morning and I was driving in and I just kept getting texts and phone calls from people from various different areas, let's say, um, in conservative politics. And there's a lot of stuff going on, you know. I can't be specific about the campaign for obvious reasons, but I can say that there's people that I know that are in and around the campaigns that have been voicing things to me. Uh, I also have friends down in Georgia who have been telling me a lot. Some of you guys have probably heard me talk about it before, but I was just so frustrated with the whole thing, you know? Like, you got a bunch of people on our side attacking moderates. You got a bunch of people like just melting down over these ridiculously oversampled polls. So silly. I mean, the Real Clear Politics aggregate of all polling has Trump up nationally by like zero point 0.6, which means on average, this is something that CNN even pointed out, that it's not that bad, but we need to act as if we're 50 points behind. And so, but the stuff that I'm really pissed off about the most is coming from our side. And it was funny because I put out that tweet. I said, it's time to start naming names about what happened down in Georgia and what's going on in or around the campaign and these surrogates and all these influence ops that are running and people just falling for it left and right. It's just so crazy and stupid. But I'm also going to talk about the attempted coup before the primary uh, at the convention in Georgia, what they tried to pull there. Many of the never Trumper people that got behind Haley, I'm guessing a lot of like dynastic Republican politics, Paul Ryan, um, people like that. They were probably behind it. But what they essentially tried to do was prevent Trump delegates from being chosen at the convention to show up in Milwaukee and then have a brokered convention and slip Haley in. That was one of the things that they were working on. I've called this out before. I've already named the names. I know who was involved. Some of them, not all of them. And then what's going on internally is it's not great either. And it's people from our side. And sure enough, I put up that tweet this morning and I got a couple messages saying, "Did you listen to Dan Bongino's show?" And I said, "No, I didn't." And I'll go listen to it here in a little bit. And he opens his show with this. Listen to this.
What I'm going to do here. Well, maybe they do because I sent them the article a few minutes ago. Get your friends, text your friends right now, Bongino Army. Tell them they need
That's
to
why people were texting me.
okay.
Okay.
They got to watch this right now. We have two big problems right now in this election. It's not the VP selection. It's not Trump's messaging. That's all bullshit. It's none of that stuff. Okay. Forget that. Throw that in the garbage. We heard that in 2016, and he went on to win pretty handily, by the way, in the Electoral College. Okay. We have two things going on. There's a lot of internal sabotage going on right now that I honestly
I'm going to get to some of that. I told you I'd name names, so I'll get to that.
did not want to highlight because I like to stay focused on the Democrats and I was hoping it would go away. It's not. And now we're going to out it today. And second, the media has now gone, I mean, a full blown Pravda. I mean, beyond Pravda. They'll actually make Pravda look like honest brokers. Let's address the sabotage first. So this morning, I'm sitting here, I'm putting the show together, and it's late. This is probably the latest cut I ever sent over to my team. Right before I walked upstairs, and I said, guys, you got to put this in the show. I see this Daily Mail article, August 14, 2022. I believe that's today, right? Inside Trump's meltdown. The ex-president is lighting up his staff because he's pissed about picking J.D. Vance.
That's false. It's not true at all. Anyway, I think he's going to address it. Hang on.
As insiders feel he's going to fire two extremely talented campaign gurus, Martha Williams, Daily Mail.
So what they're talking about is Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles, which I already have my beef with them. LaCivita for different reasons, having to do with the RNC, and Susie Wiles, in my opinion, I think pre primary, I think once she left DeSantis, I thought she was doing a decent job until I saw an interview that she just gave recently, which I'm going to play on this space. It sent me through the roof, and this was last night. And I was like, what the hell is she doing anywhere near this campaign? Anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. But this is something I didn't know about. I did know about this one, but I didn't know who it was. And Dan called it out. It's like I don't know. Like there's a collective energy of people that actually know what's going on, and they're all just getting pissed today about it. Because I didn't see this before I started talking about it this morning. Anyway, go ahead.
Again, I was going to let this go, not because I didn't want to put it out there or expose it, but because I want to stay focused on winning. And I felt like it was a distraction. And all I care about is cutesy time being over and winning. I care about ruthless political tactics. That's all I care about. However, this is getting tiresome. Folks in the chat, any idea what's going on with this article? You know, Kellyanne Conway. Oh, yeah. I'm hearing some things from some people for a while now that she's probably not that happy about JD Vance being picked. I'm telling you, I talk to people a lot who know a lot of things. This story, put that headline up again, is bullshit. And ladies and gentlemen, it's no secret I like JD Vance. I'm telling you this with absolute objectivity. I have not spoken to JD Vance about this, but I have spoken to other people. This story about President Trump being upset about picking JD Vance is bullshit. It is absolute bullshit.
I know how he was picked. I know the deal that I know. I'll pull up receipts so I can prove it to you that somebody else said it, not just me, and you can hear it from David Sachs himself. Anyway.
He killed it on this weekend show. Of course, there was going to be an oppo drop after JD Vance was picked. If they picked Rubio, Bergram, or Tim Scott or anyone else, there was going to be an oppo drop. JD Vance smooth sailed right through that, crushed it on the weekend shows, and is now lighting up the internet with viral clips. This story's BS. I suspect strongly this was a leak from people who wanted another candidate for vice president. I'm hearing from some friends of mine that this is the Kellyanne Conway camp. Now, if you look at Kellyanne Conway and where some of the money in that sphere is coming from, there is an interest in Ukrainian politics. And some of the other vice presidential candidates, are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Some of the other candidates were very interested in a more muscular posture in Ukraine, where there was a lot of money to be made for a lot of people. JD Vance is interested in a more cautious approach to Ukraine. So the money train may have dried up a little bit. So a lot of people are really upset. So instead of shutting the up, I'm trying to get the language under control. Instead of just shutting up and trying to win now with this great ticket, there are people out there sabotaging the ticket right now because it looks like their influence waned. Because let's just say, is everybody picking up what I'm putting down? That they told other people, don't you worry, I'm going to get this guy picked as VP, and don't you sweat that Ukraine thing.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And if you guys remember, Mike's here. If you guys remember the dinner in San Francisco that was held at David Sachs' home, the fundraiser, JD Vance went to David Sachs and said, hey, can you help me raise some money, maybe with your pals in San Francisco? And David Sachs says, okay, well, how much? He said, I don't know, $5 million, something like that. And then they have the dinner, and David Sachs saw the fundraiser that happened in New York, and he says, I wonder if we can go for 10. So he's talking to Chamath Palihapitiya and others, all his Silicon Valley buddies, tech buddies. And they said, I wonder if we can get 10. They ended up raising 12, and then an additional $1 million at the dinner for a total of $13 million. And that's when JD Vance was picked. Like, that's when it happened. And there were camps that were swirling around. Tim Scott, I know about internal conversations. I can't tell you how I know, but I know that there was two different camps. One was a Tim Scott camp. The other one was, JD Vance camp. And they were at war with each other inside in the internal comms. I've seen them. I know it happened. And so they began sabotaging, kind of what Dan's talking about here. I bet Mike probably even has a couple little insight.
Ooh, well, trash, my man. You have you're a brave man. That's all I got to say. I saw the space. I saw the topic as soon as I chimed in or joined in. Saul, you were nailing all the themes that I think deserve being elevated. 2 quick points, and I think you're well aware of these. Everyone listening probably is we have dramatically, and by we, I mean the United States of America, not this chat room, underestimated the influence going back well over a decade that Ukraine and Eastern Europe has had on domestic politics. This was the gravy train that the elder statesmen of both parties got rich off. Whether it was John McCain, and people forget in 2014, he was there on the streets of the color revolution and overthrowing the Ukrainian government. And the American government meddled in that election heavily. We, for all the protect democracy crowd that's so vigilant right now, we determined that election and couped Ukraine. We set the table in motion for what's happening now with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so wherever you fall on that, just know that the U.S. is deeply responsible. It was a play toy for the elites. And then what happened when President Trump won in 2016? Well, you had half of D.C. getting filthy rich off of it. You had one side getting rich basically off the Zelensky in the CIA wing, and the other side getting rich off the Western wing of Ukraine. So who got popped for that? Paul Manafort. Okay, everyone remembers Paul Manafort going to jail. He went to jail for tax crimes, right? Is what they eventually got him on, the famous mink coat or whatever the hell he had in his closet. Well, the problem was the Obama administration essentially sent over a list to the Ukraine prosecutors and said, do not prosecute people on this half of the regime and go after the other half. And so there's a huge dividing line that happens. And it was very smart for people who want to get very rich off foreign policy. And Manafort went to jail, and everyone else on the other side who was doing the exact same thing, cough, cough, Hunter Biden and Hillary Clinton, John McCain, and all of those people went scot-free and kept doing it. So this is just the gravy train, and it's well over a decade. Keep going. And it's a damn shame. And you know what? It's a uniparty issue. It's unfortunately a bipartisan issue. It's not an ideological issue because the America First movement is very clear on this. But, there's still people who poke their heads up. And I'm not here to name drop anybody in particular. I know a lot of people can draw their own conclusions, but it's foreign money affecting domestic politics. And the sad, unfortunate truth is there are people in the America First movement who seek to use their connective tissue to that to get rich off the same gravy train as everyone else. It's disgusting. It has to end. I know J.D. Vance understands it. I know Donald Trump understands it. And thank you, Trash, for having the guts to call it out. No, I had a second point, but I dominated the floor for well longer than I wanted to speak on.
No, go ahead, man. So that's cool. This is a good conversation because I'm gonna back up. So just go ahead and land. You can go ahead and say what you were going to say, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, I guess the second point is this is what happens when the public cries out for nothing more than accountability. For how long, right? Like you talk to any disaffected American, they'll say, why should I vote? What's going to change? Or why should I get excited about this investigation or this disclosure? Who's going to be held responsible? And this is what happens when you let Hillary Clinton skate. And she's only the most recent example. Bill Clinton and Hillary professionalized corruption in America. A lot of people have been corrupt before them, don't get me wrong. But they took it to the next level and put a professional veneer on the entire thing with the Clinton Foundation, which essentially spurned the House of Cards, Netflix series. That's basically a loose approximation of that. It's basically, foreign influence lobbying with some humanitarian glaze so we can rob Haiti blind and then move on to like vulture capitalists to the next region in Ukraine. And obviously that's dependent on a lot of U.S. taxpayer dollars flowing to those regions, international organizations and globalism, et cetera. This is how people get rich in politics. And Hillary Clinton got away scot-free. Okay. And so you see the Clintons getting rich. You see her, despite all that corruption, being able to run for president without any scrutiny on it. And then you look at like the Obama administration. Obama got filthy rich, not because he had to do that. He didn't have to debase himself like the Clintons did. Okay. What he basically had a situation where the corruption scene evolved. You had corporate America that was fully in on this, where you saw the rise of kind of the new Silicon Valley money and all that, Netflix, et cetera. You have Netflix backing up Brinks trucks just so they could slap Obama's name on as a producer for a movie that, he probably had nothing to do with. If you think Obama was sitting there cutting clips or calling, scene, you're a moron, okay? Obama just lends his name to Netflix as a means for corporate giants to shovel hundreds of millions of dollars to him, to the same corporate board members with other interests, et cetera. can keep the gravy train rolling for all else. It's a seal of approval, and it's also basically a warning, the same way a mafia boss would do it, that you better not touch me, MFer. And so that's how Obama got filthy rich. And then you look, okay, so what about the Bidens? The Bidens are always the ugly, redheaded stepchild trailer park family of the Democrat Party. So the Biden family basically is looking around, seeing the Clintons get rich. Oh my gosh, people are just giving Obama money, basically like mafia money, just to shut everyone else up. And they would love nothing more than back up the Brinks truck to the first black president. And Biden's sitting around saying, where the hell's my cut? And this family's been hustling, making, dirty money in politics on a small level for 5 decades. And so they think, hey, it's our bite of the apple. And so they do basically the white trash approximation of both of those things through Hunter, literally the crackhead version. And I say that in all seriousness. It was the crackhead approximation of the Clinton Foundation with the same vengeance of I deserve what these other people got, because in Joe Biden's mind, he is their equivalent historically. And so then you get basically the Biden corruption scheme, which, is evil in its own right, but it's also propelled and shaped American foreign policy and a continuation of it in an area which no one, frankly, gives a shit about. Besides the media cultivating this whole thing, like no one cared about Ukraine before the propaganda launch of the pilot of Kyiv or whatever the hell that fake news AI thing was, and all sorts of corporate media and everything who's connected to all the people I've already mentioned push this upon us. But they deserve, in their mind, deserve their cut at the pie too. And so we're just sitting here now. I've walked through very quickly multiple decades of this grift and scheme. And the point is, until you finally hold someone friggin' accountable and bust this crap up, and not just around the edges, like we have put some, we've caused some political pain on the whole Hunter Biden issue. Obviously, Hillary had to deal with her issues, but we never ultimately held anyone accountable. And this is why people like Jim Jordan of the House Judiciary Committee, who go on cable news, tell us all, look us all in the eye and say they're going to solve this. It's going to be the Oversight Congress. We will have accountability, are essentially the veneer of fake opposition to what's going on, really dictating global events. And it really speaks to the fact that as a supposed constitutional republic where we can vote for people to represent us to put a stop to this, it's all fake. It's just all fake. And that's really what we have to break through. And that's not a black pill, that's a white pill. Because at the end of the day, I think we should all know it's all fake, and we haven't even tried to stop it yet. We've had people lie to us and tell us they're going to stop it. But it's time to do some damn accountability. And should President Trump win, I hope he sees that through. Should he lose, I do not think Harris and her administration have any interest in fighting those battles. They're probably in on it too. I mean, she's married to a big LA entertainment lawyer. You do the math. It doesn't seem like the kind of power couple interesting in decorrupting America. But that has to be the standard for us, and that has to be what we push people. I think we should all resist the urge to view this in partisan terms of red v. blue and cheer when our guy goes on Sean Hannity and gets slobbered all over for sending a letter. No, what I want is a decorruption of American politics. What I want is a foreign policy consistent with what we all want and vote for. And I want people to stop getting rich and sending our children to die just so, the degenerates of the world can get even richer.
Yeah, and I want to point this out for people that maybe a lot of people didn't catch this, but Lady G went over to Ukraine, rushes back to try to introduce legislation to permanently fund Ukraine, and all of this noise about the VP and all this other political noise that kicked up around that time. It's pretty clear. And on Jim Jordan, I'd like to talk about that for a minute, because a lot of you guys know, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time on is going after the censorship industrial complex and these various different influence ops that our government taxpayers are paying for, being run on people on social media right now at all times through like this disarm framework, things like that. But Jim Jordan supposedly has this accountability oversight committee, and he even brings Matt Taibbi. They briefly talk about Twitter files, sure. Then he comes out with these long strings of emails showing it basically he wasn't holding the social media companies' feet to the fire. He was saying, "Oh no, they were bullied into doing this." So he was running interference for Meta and other social media companies at these oversight hearings, displaying how the FBI was bullying them and the White House and the government was doing it. It's just poor little social media companies. It wasn't their fault. It's essentially how it came off to me. And I'd like to remind people of one of Jim Jordan's biggest funders, Silicon Valley. So,
Well, can I pop in and break some news since we're
yeah,
on this topic real quick? The first and, as far as I'm aware, only lawsuit the House has filed. I'm hearing chirps that it was dropped today. Okay, so the House Judiciary Committee, led by Chairman Jordan, sued over the Foreign Influence Task Force, which we just touched on, and Elvis Chan, who many of you probably know. And they sued over not the issue they wanted us to believe they were suing over, shutting down the task force. They basically sued over a tertiary at best issue of who can be in the room during the interview when they get to talk to this guy. Okay, no one gives a crap about that. It's basically some lawyer argument over, how many lawyers get to be in the room. And they, instead of going after the documents or the accountability, they sued over who gets to be in the room. And it was always a dumb lawsuit because very smart people, including the guys on our team, told them, you're going to end up losing this. And so all this to say, the only legal action out of the House of Representatives in this Congress was quietly dropped. And I'm waiting to confirm this, but a lot of people have hit me up about it. And so we're looking at a 0-for-1 record this Congress in terms of accountability in the legal forefront. And I think once that hits the news and people put 2 and 2 together, it's going to be absolutely disastrous. But the Silicon Valley influences loom large, man. It's either your team Google or team Meta, and it pays to be on either.
it does pay well. And, the Google thing's interesting. That judge ruling and DOJ determining what they're going to do with that. And then we saw the reporting come out about how Kamala Harris was using ad buys with fake headlines for ads, and Google was, prioritizing and serving them up. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, and this is on our side. It's just like what they did in Georgia. They tried to create a brokered convention going into Milwaukee and slipping in Nikki Haley. Like they tried that. They actually tried to bar out Trump delegates from the convention and elect a different slate, ones that were not going to be loyal to Trump, who was the presumptive nominee. It got stopped, thank goodness. But yeah, they tried it. They tried it. That's our side, by the way.
Biggest cable news defenders and the people profit off their association to him. And I'm not dropping any names, and I'm not saying Jim Jordan. I think Jim Jordan's a great dude, personally. I think he's a great politician. I don't think he's commanded the powers of the House at all. That's my criticism of him. I think he's a great patriot, and I know people can take another interpretation of that. But my point is the House needs to do more, and he's the guy in charge of accountability in the House. And if you're in charge of accountability, you should be subjected to accountability yourself. And I think he would agree with this. And I've had this conversation before. And so, not on him, and I don't mean what I'm about to say about him, but there are a lot of people on Capitol Hill and elsewhere who publicly would love nothing more than to associate themselves with President Trump, privately despise the man. And so, of course, if there were still smoke-filled rooms, which they're not because no one smokes anymore, and these people are, too lame to even do anything like that, they all privately were thinking Trump wouldn't get the nom and hoping he wouldn't get the nom. That's why we haven't seen anything about what happened in the 2020 election. That's why we haven't seen anything about the fake Russia hoax, which was treasonous and tried to and basically ruined the first populist takeover of the U.S. government in probably a century. That's why we haven't seen anything about a lot of the illegitimate actions and the weaponization tilt because of January 6th as the excuse. That's why they haven't touched that. And it's because they're listening to people like Frank Luntz and other consultant class people who are telling them, don't listen to what your voters say. Let's talk about inflation only. Let's talk about, groceries and those sorts of things. And there's a massive disconnect between what the people who vote for the people who represent them want and what those people end up doing. And that's a fundamental problem in this country right now. And it's not an anti-democracy problem. It's an anti-constitutional republic problem because we're just not being represented.
Yeah, and I would like to also add a personal note. I call people out because I want our side to win, and I think that there are a lot of people that have done great things. My whole thing is like you pointed out, and I know that's your whole thing too. I just want accountability. I just want clarity, right? I just like I'll call out the bad things as much as I'll call out the good things. But that's the point. That's the accountability aspect of it. And it actually, what you're talking about with the consultant class versus like everyday Americans. Something else kind of is interesting. I don't think a lot of people touched on. You remember the Trump Elon space, right? The legacy media wasn't pissed off that Trump and Elon were allowed to speak to each other in front of millions of people. They were pissed off that they couldn't shape the narrative with questions and rough the edges up, and their uselessness was proven on full display. That's what they were pissed about, and it's really no different of why the consultant class and all these people, the standard way of doing business, it's just business as usual people hate America first because we're demanding all of these things, and that puts
Well,
them out of
how many
business.
ads can you sell in a Twitter space if you're a political consultant? Zero.
Exactly.
Who gets to sell the ads? Elon.
Yep.
And so, what's your purpose as a political consultant if you can't help CNN or Fox News sell ads, or you can't sell a fake poll to some dumb politician? If you actually have politicians talking directly to the people, you don't need a friggin' consultancy class.
Exactly. And they had a 2.5 hour frank conversation. And it was so funny because I was watching like CNN having meltdowns, talking about, well, here's what we think we'll hear tonight. Or here's what we think. There's no one there to fact check it. What is this? And again, they were all put out of a job because a frank conversation happened and people around the world actually heard what the actual positions were behind and the thought process behind their ideas. And that was what pissed him off the most. And I don't think a lot of people talk about it. I know, Mike, you got it, but it's it's funny to me. And again, all I want is accountability. And if you're going to try to run these ops and try to broker a convention out of the state of Georgia, Georgia's got so many problems, man. Just the establishment Republicans in Georgia, it is awful. That's why I've been, Mike. That's why I've been talking to you about Georgia lately, because I keep getting sent stuff. And some more stuff's going to come out soon, guys. But yeah, I just wanted to do this. I just figured a little accountability for people on our side. Also, people, can we stop being so reactionary and go on offense? That's why I like what Oversight does. A lot of stuff that I do, I don't really react to a whole lot of things. Instead, I present a playing field. Now I need you to respond. Here's some information. Now I need you to respond. I don't care if you like me or not, but you're going to need to respond to the information. And instead of just being reactionary and going to try to cancel Joe Rogan because he said some offhand comment about RFK, like, what are we even doing? What are you doing? Or like going after Kyle Rittenhouse because he said he wants to write in Ron Paul. Who cares? Stop it. You're making us spend an entirely too much mental bandwidth trying to keep on target, keep on track, and actually fight the things that matter that's going to put some change into this country. Mike, I know you and your team over there, you guys are fucking rock stars over there. If you guys aren't following Oversight Project at Oversight PR, Mike Howlett here on stage, you need to do so. I share their stuff out all the time because they're going on offense. You want to share about anything you've been working on lately? Because there's been a lot. I can't even get to it.
Yeah, Trash, I appreciate that. And real quick, in Georgia, we released the video that Elon pinned to the top of his Twitter feed, which was simply illegal aliens on camera in Georgia telling us they're registered to vote. Okay, take that for what it's worth. Some of them are registered, some of them probably are not. Pieces came out, they're like, oh, those people were probably lying or they just wanted to get out of there, whatever. Illegal aliens throughout this country, we have tons of them on video, and we're going to be releasing more saying they're registered to vote. Okay, huge problem, huge absolute problem. We released that, one of those videos in Georgia. I don't think my phone's ever stopped vibrating since then because so many people are so hypersensitive to what's happening in Georgia in the Civil War and the right that's happening down there. If you touch anything in those politics, 50% of the people are going to want to stab you in the back. And then the other half, want to do the same thing on your behalf. It's the most disgusting state of affairs ever, all for just a problem that I thought everyone on the right agreed with. Illegal aliens shouldn't vote. And illegal aliens admitting on camera to a crime is a pretty big indication of proof that it is a problem. So in Georgia, I share that to say, I work here in DC. I'm not a famous dude whatsoever. But once you screw with those people, you can tell there's a lot of machine politics at play. They've tried a million different ways to get me in trouble over it. Thankfully, that's just not going to work. Big drops we got. More on that front. That's definitely true. We got another few states coming up in terms of a big illegal alien problem. You've noticed a lot of secretaries of state lately and governors have said, oh my gosh, we cleaned up our voter rolls. All of a sudden you saw this just squirt of so many different states taking election integrity measures saying, oh, we looked at our rolls, we kicked the illegals off. Good. I'm glad states are freaked out about our exposure videos. I'm glad that they sense it's actually a problem we're solving. It's late. It's pretty late to care about it. But we're here not to give cover to any politician. We're here to illustrate the problem to the American people that this country's been invaded. It's being invaded. And a lot of these illegals are going to participate in this election. Okay, that's just a simple fact. Anyone who tells you there's any way to safeguard the system 100% against the illegal aliens picking the next president is a damn liar. The last election came down to less than 40,000 votes if you trust the official tallies, which anybody with any degree of independent thought should not. 40,000? We've had 10 million illegal aliens cross the border. Okay, think about the amount of ballots that are going to go out that are collectible to illegal aliens who are automatically registered at DMVs. The simple fact is there's no panacea or silver bullet to solve that problem right now. The SAVE Act will do a whole hell of a lot. And the fact that the left completely opposes it will show that they seek to benefit from the problem. But we're living in dire straits right now, okay? So we need to do everything we possibly can, but we need to admit that we can't solve it completely. So we're going to have a lot more on that front. Second to that, we just, Harris was the border czar. Everyone knows she's the border czar. In fact, she was the worst border czar in the history of this country. I mean, I think my 3.5-year-old could have done a better job. She's definitely more capable than Vice President Harris. So Harris says, and the whole media agreed with her, oh, she wasn't the border czar all of a sudden. Let's clean this record up. So we had the bright idea, as soon as, 4 weeks ago, once this narrative started picking up, let's just simply ask the Department of Homeland Security, all right, she's not the border czar, so therefore there should not be any communications amongst your politicals or elsewhere that have the word border czar or the term border czar and the term Vice President Harris. And to make matters easier, don't give us any press clippings or external references to it. We want your communications that say border czar and Harris. So that should be nothing, right? It should be big fat 0, nil, no docs. They got back to us recently and said, holy crap, Heritage and Oversight Project, we can't do this. It's too big of a burden. Like the search is crazy. And so what does that tell you? That tells you there's a whole crap ton of documents about Harris being involved in DHS things or people at DHS saying something effective like, oh, Harris told us to do this. We got to do this, right? And so they're obviously refusing to give it to us. So we sued them. There's a lot more coming out. I saw a couple other guys on our team in the chat. Can we pull up Country Law to give us a little insight into some of the other breakers?
Yeah, Country Law was Michigan, right?
Kentucky.
Kentucky, that's right.
Deeply offended you said Michigan. He's a Southerner.
Well, no, I know that's Kentucky, but I was thinking about this Small Business Administration story.
Oh,
he was on stage.
He can hit that. He can hit that.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. Country Law, just request. I don't see you. I don't know why I'm not even following you. If I follow you, I should be seeing you. Just hit request, man. I'll bring you up. Yeah. So while we're waiting for that, Katie, you threw your hand up. Did you want to ask a question or anything?
I did. Well, firstly, I wanted to say thanks for the space and thanks for the motivational speech on stop being so reactionary. I definitely try, but even I fall a victim to that because some things are just shocking. And I'm like, people just need to know what I think. It's the social media disease where we have to fill the void. And I'm sorry. Just forgive me now.
There's nothing wrong with that. Listen, I throw shade all the time, Katie. Like, it's cathartic for me. I'll throw some shade, but I don't organize like groundswell cancellations or it's not even a conversation worth having. I don't even need to pursue conspiracy theories because I've got proof of conspiracies with receipts that we can talk about that are solvable.
I know. I love that. And also everyone repost the space because we're learning a lot and it's recorded. Nice to meet you, Mike. So you had mentioned about these people being given ballots. I heard today that their plan is to give the ballots, like they're basically registering all these people, giving all the ballots, and then they're going to immediately start cleaning up the voter roll as like their plan. Now, maybe I don't understand that in full context, but does that sound familiar to you? And if so, would you expand on that?
Yeah, so the first thing to understand is there is no list of every single illegal alien in the country. And so when we talk about things like making sure voter rolls don't match to, illegal aliens, know that it's not just like you plug one system into the other and everything just goes away. Like you can, to borrow Hillary's term, bleach bit the voter roll. And so we're already tilting at an impossibility. And so what happens essentially is a legal alien comes into the U.S. They're given some sort of quasi status whereby, in this administration's eyes, they're no longer illegal. They're in a safe, orderly, and humane pathway, right? They've either been paroled, quote unquote, into the country. They've been, asylums, whatever. All these different ways they've figured out to get illegals in and call it legal. So these people are also given, IDs. So they show up to a Department of Motor Vehicle place. Oh, wait, back up 1 second. Before they get to the DMV, and we proved this on video, what happens, they go to like a blue state or blue city, because residency is an important thing to prove. Like, you got to start getting documented in the system. And so these nonprofits and others will start providing fraudulent documents to prove residency to them. So what this looks like in practical terms is New York Shelter, La Jornada in Queens, where we went with our good friend Anthony at Muckracker, and posed as an illegal alien and basically said, how much for a residency document? $10. That's what it takes. So you start getting residency. Then you show up to the DMV. You say, hey, I'm here. I want a driver's privilege card, or what have you. You show whatever friggin' documents that the shelters and the nonprofits have given you to meet the lowest threshold of existence. Then you get your government issued ID. And then you're going through that process. And thanks to the Bill Clinton, smart guy, not a great guy, very smart guy, the National Motor Voter Law, NVRA. You're going there and you have an illegal alien who probably doesn't even speak Spanish or English. They definitely speak a lot of Spanish. Looking at a touch screen at a DMV, sifting through a form like the terms and condition of any of us who scroll through it and we even speak the language. And there's a box where they're asked to basically admit that they're an illegal alien. Now, a lot of people are like, even if they understood it, right? Think about it this way. Even if they spoke perfect English and went to Harvard Law School and were the smartest illegal alien this country's ever seen, you'd have to be the dumbest smart guy in the world to check the box that says, hey, government, I am here illegally. I jumped your border. I paid a cartel. I am also doing DoorDash, delivering drugs to a bunch of American kids who died of fentanyl. I shouldn't be in your state. I'm working illegally. Here's a box. I'm finally face to face with a government entity. I'm going to friggin' click that box and admit to the government I'm here illegally. So of course they don't touch that box. What happens then? They're registered to vote. Do I think these illegal aliens are doing that because they want to vote for Joe Biden? Probably not. I think what it means is that some smarter people who understand that this means there is a massive pressure on the amount of ballots that are going to go out. And where do they go out to? They go out to the place where they're registered. Where are they registered? A left-leaning nonprofit. Who funds that left-leaning nonprofit? The Harris Biden administration. So now you have a bunch of ballots going out to these these locations that only the people who have a political interest in them know where they are. So that's how elections get rigged. That's basically the basic fundamentals of it. And anyone who's telling you that there's an off switch you can just hit isn't telling the truth. Until we remove all these illegal aliens, we're never going to secure our elections. But that being said, our goals now should not be solving the problem entirely. It should be mitigating it as much as humanly possible. For President Trump to win, and I think he will, obviously I'm work at a think tank. I'm not a political guy. He's got to win by a big margin. It's got to be too big to rig. And I think fundamentally speaking, this election is probably tracking with President Trump up about 8 points, but he's got to win probably by about 6 to overcome that cheating. So what needs to happen for a free and fair election is we need to mitigate the abuses. And the SAVE Act would do a lot to that. And I think if they condition the government funding, which expires on September 30th, on the SAVE Act, the whole country is going to see with their own eyes that the entirety of the left in the corporate media oppose it. And a lot of people are going to be thinking, why the hell would they oppose illegal aliens not being able to vote in our election? And then if Harris and co win, I think they're going to have an even lower trust in this election outcome than the last one, which is saying something. And that is the real threat to quote unquote democracy, TM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I want to remind Katie, because like you have worked on more than you could probably even count. But when he was talking about how the Harris Biden administration is funding it, they did this through Executive Order 14019. Go look at that yourself. It's on Oversight's page. Mike and I have had millions of spaces on this. We've talked about it constantly when there's always the updates. And they're even trying to also use Department of Education funds to fund these hyper-partisan left-wing dark money groups for the get out the vote. They are registering illegals at every single government touch point, including what I brought up earlier about the Small Business Administration in Michigan in that story. And And so, yeah, I think your numbers are pretty close. And I want to remind people also, the perception has to be there. If you guys remember, so I don't know if you guys know this or not, I got to participate in the Transition Integrity Project 2024, and it was a war game exercise. There's a lot of reporting on that. If you guys go to the Transition Integrity Project Twitter, you guys can find the full report there. I got to participate in it. I had a lot of fun doing it, and Chuck DeVore did a great job. And but if you remember, in 2020, they ran the Transition Integrity Project. This was out of the Berggruen Institute, Niles Gilman, Rosa Brooks, and essentially they supposedly war gamed. It read more like an intelligence briefing than an actual war game. And but in it, throughout the entire thing, and through the document called The Count that Millie Weaver and I talk about, maintaining the perception of the American public that everything that they're seeing that seems to be outside of the norms of a normal election is completely okay. Maintain the perception, and maintain the perception that the polls are within margin of error, therefore that she can go through, and not enough people in the country will believe that that election was, not free and fair, right? So you have to keep this perception constantly going. So legacy media goes into overdrive. They're maintaining the perception that everything's completely normal. Yeah, we're counting ballots for 2 weeks. It's no problem. Listen. This is an extraordinary election. We had COVID, we have all these ballots, and we had these rule changes last minute. How can you expect us to button up an election on one day, right? And so that was the whole perception needed to then do all the shenanigans, the various different shenanigans that happen in different states, like Claire, what's her name? Claire Woodall, I believe is her name. Up in Wisconsin, she's fired now, where she had that email with one of the Zuckerbucks people at 3:30 a.m. say, I added the additional ballots. All of that stuff happened. The reason I'm saying all of this is because right now they're trying to astroturf and oversample Democrats for these polls to maintain a perception, number one, of popularity, number two, they didn't just run a coup on a sitting president, and number three, that it's close and therefore within the margin of error. So these polls can be a little wrong. I I just beg to differ. I've looked at registered sign up of Republicans versus Democrats. So the registering of Republicans versus Democrats number is a big deal. And then I look at the swing numbers, basically the swing in polling from 2020 to 2024, where they're at currently, where they were then. If you look at that, all of that math to me adds up to a +6, +7. Mike says 8. That's possible. I think so. But again, it's all about perception. So all attention needs to be on putting these stories out, talking about how there's empirical proof on camera that they're admitting that they did vote or they are voting. Number one. Number two, we have proof through executive order through the White House of how they're funding the get out the vote operation through hyperpartisan left wing dark money groups. Number three, how they're doing it through the small business administrations, how they're doing it through these NGOs at touch points with immigration and so on and so forth. So like that's where the pressure needs to be, and that's why I spend so much time talking about this stuff. And I don't need to talk about anything else because I've got enough here that if we talk about this and keep the pressure up, and to Mike's credit, what we talking about the Save Act in September, if you keep the focus there, it changes the dynamic of what can be done, and you can make it too big to rig. But also, I would like to remind people, if you guys want a black pill, stay off my feed. I don't want to hear it. I don't care. We're out here working our asses off. I have a full-time job, plus I have another company, and I do nothing but this for 40 plus hours a week. So like, just stay out of it. We're out here working. If you want to go sit in your armchair and eat potato chips and ignore what we're saying, you're saying it's all hope is lost. You're out of your mind, and you haven't seen the evidence that I have, and people like Mike and Oversight and Kyle and Colin and Adam and all the guys that are doing the work, going on offense. It's doing real damage. It's doing real deal damage to the point, as Mike pointed out earlier. Even the some of the RINO Republican governors changing election laws, purging rolls. We saw what Glenn Youngkin did in Virginia because these guys, all of these guys know, including Raffensperger and Kemp down in Georgia. They know, but they don't like how it looks on them, and they don't want to do any real work. So they will fight tooth and nail anybody that's actually pointing their stuff out. And that's what Mike alluded to earlier. This is what I started the space on, was because of these guys. So I just want to point that out, Mike. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or Katie, if you have any questions. I just wanted to kind of, I don't know, like color in the lines on this stuff, like so people really understand it. Not all hope is lost. We've got a hell of a battle here, and they're gonna. It's gonna be really hard for them to overcome a steal, even with 10 million plus registered illegal voters, to overcome if this stays the message. And we stop talking about useless nonsense thing like who Kyle Rittenhouse is voting for. Knock it off. Stop it.
But yeah, I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Mike or Katie, if you have any questions. We got a couple requests. I can take some questions here.
Yeah, let's do some questions. Actually, I had a rant kind of building up, but let's.
Well, I mean,
No, do the rant. Do the rant. Do
we
the
like
rant.
rants. I rant. I'm a ranter.
Okay, this is not a black pill. In fact, my whole world pill, everyone always says, Mike, where's the good news? And the good news is we understand that things are screwed and that there's no one coming to our defense. That is the moment where the rear guard comes through. We need to understand that we're not only in a transition period of our country, but also like the right, so to speak, or whatever term you want to use. Some people call the Republican Party. I don't frankly don't really care about that political party. There are different goals by the people who have power. And the goals of the people that you just mentioned, not every single one specifically, because I don't want to get in trouble, right? But just as a general matter,
Yeah,
are not the same goals as ours. Their goals are political protection, the consultancy class to keep the sacred cow that they invested so much in, whether it's the elected official or the next rising star, as a profit center, etc. And so all of these theatrical responses to these issues, which end up, being for by and large meaningless. Like we're what, in August right now, and we're talking about cleaning up voter rolls. Like, save me. They aren't working. And I think we're at a critical mass now where enough of us and the power of X, the power of spaces, the power of like independent citizen journalists, right? Like Trash, what you're doing, what like 1,000 other people are doing by like crowdsourcing this message is really breaking through in an industry disruptive thing. Like I've been in this, I'm not that old, but like, in this like political arena for like 15 years. 15 years ago, there was a funnel of information. And, donors and staffers, if you will, or like members would hold it all. Now we hold it. Now we know what's up. We know what they're doing is not working. And then better off, we know why it's not working and what their interests are and how those interests are counter to ours. And so the ideological kind of realignment of the right, which was ushered in 2015, starting with President Trump's rise, is still in motion, but it's only going to succeed if you believe it's worthy, which I obviously do, if the people take control of it. And that's what we're in the process of doing. We're basically calling out all these people for being completely fake and completely not delivering on our goals. We're calling out the people who get fat on this stuff. We're calling out the pollsters. We're calling out the consultants. We're calling out the desk jockeys. We're calling out the cable news hosts. We're calling out all these people because they haven't done a damn thing for any of us, and we know it. But at the end of the day, it's up to us to take the power back and deliver the movement to the place where it needs to go, where we were promised it was go, but it's on us.
Yeah, it really is on us. And I'm going to make an Avengers or a meme reference, but I've assembled a team, and I've assembled a team of people who do a lot of great work on social media, often thankless. A lot of times they don't even get reach, and they don't have large audiences. So I said, okay, well, you're putting out incredible work. Come work with us, and then whatever anybody has, data dump us, and we will parse through it like you did the other day, Mike. When you guys just, you know what, here, Aaron, just take the recordings, see what you can get out of it. We're talking about the Las Vegas police scanner recordings. And what did I do? I went through it. I picked out all that stuff. I listened to all 60 minutes of it. I picked it up. I put a thread together, put it out. It's pinned to my tweet. Red State picked up on it, and then some other media outlets picked up on it. And it all came from here. By the way, I would like to remind people of what Mike was talking about. This is not self-praise. I don't like that either. But what I'm saying is this. We held an 8-hour space. I brought in train engineers. I brought in all kinds of experts. And for 8 hours, we parsed through all the information that was going on in East Palestine, Ohio. Nobody was talking about it. And we took 8 hours. We went through all the receipts. I had people that were lifelong conductors. I had people, experts that worked on the railroad. And we took the manifest. We went through all of it. We actually broke down exactly pretty much what happened there because no one was talking about it. These East Palestine, Ohio people. And then Mario Nafal had a space on it. He took a lot of our guests that we had, which is fine, elevated it. Then Tucker Carlson started talking about it. And then all of a sudden, Trump shows up in East Palestine. Rudy Giuliani shows up with my friend Millie in East Palestine, Ohio. Then Pete Buttigieg went there. By the way, funny story, when Rudy was speaking, nobody wanted to talk to Pete Buttigieg. It was really interesting, but it forced them to have to move on something. And whether you guys think it's powerful or not, it is. And so the stuff that like America First Legal's putting out, incredible stuff.
Awesome stuff. They're on the fight. They're on the offense. People like Oversight Project, they're on offense. And so it is our responsibility for people that I've built. I'm lucky enough to build a platform. I've got almost 50,000 followers in less than 2 years. I really appreciate everybody for this. Thank you so much. But it is our responsibility to put this out and then have the responsibility and integrity to take up that mantle and say, all right, let's put down your political bias for a second. Let's couch that for a minute. Let's put that over there. All right, I need you to stop with your propaganda crap. We don't need to reshape this. Here's the truth. Here's what's going on. We can fix this from a nonpartisan position. We don't have to get political with this stuff. You guys know my politics. You all understand that. I get that. But I'm not approaching it from a partisan place. I'm like, nope, these are receipts. These are legal documents. These are investigations. These are FBI legal documents. We need to take a look at this. This is an actual problem. Look at the funding from the TVT grant program. Look at, and we can talk about Department of Homeland Security and how they're radicalizing and paying a bunch of professors because we have the receipts. I think Heritage put that out April of 2023, I think. I don't think anybody caught it. It was the pyramid of radicalism. It was an important story because we had Michael Lodenthal, who's a professor at Cincinnati, sitting on the same stage with DHS talking about how to dox people better. Like, those are real receipts. That's not a partisan thing. Those are receipts. And so it's our responsibility to talk about those things. And so I really appreciate what they do over there. And that's why, I like to call Mike a friend now at this point. But because that's why I've had so much interest in what Oversight's been doing. It's why I always share this stuff, because those are real receipts. Those are tangible investigations. Those are tangible legal challenges that can make real change. Not just sitting on the internet talking about my favorite talking point from retail politics. That's dumb, boring, and that's the distraction everybody wants you in. Sorry about the rant, but I had to rant too. Mike, get up here. I don't know if you're having issues. I sent you another request. I don't know who's next. So Holgrain, go ahead. Then Jack and Betty Rose, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a real quick thing because I just kind of joined. I was listening a little bit, but just joined. But as far as like not blackpilling, I was just gonna say there's been incredible momentum that we've had over the last 8 years. Of basically being 90% against America First constitutional, pro freedom values, to at the end of Trump's presidency in 2020, it was like 50-50, to now like we've got the co-chair, of the RNC. So there's been incredible movement from like an optimistic perspective, and just like, I mean, obviously, yeah, there's stuff that gets in the way, but I'm just saying, like, as far as like, we're making incredible progress with these kind of values, and we just got to keep up the fight, doing the hard work and door knocking and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, hang on real quick. But I want to remind you, this kind of speaks to the this kind of speaks to what Mike was talking about in the consultant class. Right, that they don't want America first. They definitely don't want out of control of being a political consultant, shaping the narrative, selling ad space by going on CNN or MSNBC and touting the talking points. And it really kind of attacks that. And that's what they're really pissed off about. It's not even really that political, to be honest. I'm trying to get Mike Howell in here. Mike, I sent you a request if you want to come on up.
I don't even see him
I
anymore.
do. But
Oh, I like him.
yeah, no, Mike's great. He's executive director of Oversight Project. He does that's what we've been talking about. If you guys want to catch some previous spaces that we've had going over the stuff that they've been working on, if you go to my highlights tab, let's
My
go.
my great friend Paul Dans is in this chat. You may know him as the architect of P25. He's a busy man, so he's just going to pop in and say hello and probably not take too many questions for reasons
Well,
I think you all suspect.
and real quick, Paul, I was actually the guy on the internet last year actually breaking down what James Bacon was talking about on Tim Pool's pot. That my thread has been shared about Project 2025 all over the internet because I seem to be the only one that actually read it and paid attention to it. So good job, Paul. Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
I think we got to send him an invite real quick. I think it's hold on one sec. I'll tell you his handle here. He's Paul Dans. I'm not seeing his handle pop up. Sorry, I'm trying to find him in the chat so I can invite him. But if you see him, invite him. Anywho, carry on. But let's get him up here. Just say hello and tell the troops that to keep the faith.
You want to go to Jack?
Hey, all, it's Paul. How are you? Great to be with everyone tonight.
Hey, Paul,
Um,
good to see you. Thanks for coming up.
yeah, no. It's been my pleasure, and obviously, I saw Mike pop up in my mentions, so I was excited to learn from him every night as education here. So, um, yeah, I mean, I agree with the white pill sentiment. Look, a lot of this is meant to knock us down. But that said, I do think it's time we have to be serious about some course correction with the leadership in the campaign that we're seeing. There are definitely some wins against us, and the election integrity thing is the thing I'm losing sleep with. What Mike's talking to you about with the illegal aliens and the voting and the registration is really, I think, something that now we're coming up on the 11th hour, really, and it needs all of our attention. Really, it's a mitigation problem, but it's doable. But it really has to be pushed to the top, I think.
No, it definitely does, Paul. And actually, so I'm glad I have you here. I want to actually offer one of the things that really bothered me about the response or lack of response from our side in regarding all the lies and the BS about Project 2025, right? Because I knew about this. I read it last year. I've done spaces on it. Matter of fact, I actually had people from DHS, from the EPA, into the spaces talking about this rearrangement strategy, which was brilliant in my opinion, and like how it was just attacked and they're going to ban pickles under Project 2025. Since I have you, I actually think this would be a good idea. Um, so I understand it, right? I understand it like James Bacon understands it. Where basically, the Civil Services Reform Act 1978 establishes the Office of Personnel Management so as to keep a check on FDR's ever expanding massive spin ups of all these different bureaucracies within the government and how to actually get a handle on it. And it too was corrupted. And so I think this incoming administration, although they can claim it or not, I think it was a common sense approach to actually draining the swamp. Is there something you want to say to people that are listening so they understand exactly what it is versus what it's not being lied about?
Well, sure. I mean, 90% of what you're hearing now is really disinformation about the project, and it was always supposed to be non-political in the sense it was candidate agnostic, but it was unapologetically conservative. That said, it's like what Mike's saying. It's a recognition that what we have today isn't really the constitutional democracy that was envisioned, and that is in large measure due to this permanent government we have in Washington, which is really engineered through this architecture built over the last 100 years, the progressive government structure, and the cornerstone of that is the civil service. When it was put in place, 10% of those jobs were going to be consecrated to projections. Now, 99.8% of the jobs fall under that. So you're talking about 2.2 million jobs. The politicals really only measure 4,000. So that's a ratio of 1 to 500. That's your democracy, folks. When the president comes in, he and one day she, can neither hire nor fire these people. And with the kind of this constellation with the Congress and media and big law and big pharma and big everything, basically they've created a deep state, the intelligence communities and the like. And that's really what the autopilot that we live under. So yeah, at the end of the day, it's really kind of bipartisan in the sense that to liberals even believe in some respect the system's broken. Now the problem the reality for them though is that 95% of the civil service is stocked with liberals. So they find ready helpers when they come in versus a conservative or Republican would really fight an uphill battle where the majority of the building is ideologically against you. So that said, though, that from 1978, the Civil Service Reform Act, that was the stab even 50 years ago at trying to make things more accountable, but over time you kind of let the civil servants govern themselves, and the politicals have been very hands off, and the power just keeps accreting to this career ranks. So it's we're never really going to get back into a constitutional mooring until we get control of both the civil service, but really the deep state as a whole. And that really starts with the election. That they have moved out and figured out how to kind of rig the system, and it's really only going to help when all of us put our shoulder to the wheel. So, it's a long-winded way of saying. This isn't going to change in 4 years. But a lot of what Project 2025 was doing was, in Obama's words, a teachable moment to really let us know that this is what we're up against. This is the battle of our age, really, to allow people to be back in their government, and that's only going to happen with really fundamental reorganization. And these are aims. This is not radical. This is how the government was consecrated and built, and it was the case for a good 150 years until we got sidetracked with the progressive era. So, much of the misinformation you hear about Project 2025 is really, every time you hear it, just think that's just another a chorus member of the deep state speaking up to defend their own turf.
Yeah, no, and Paul, I want to speak to that a little bit because I don't think people really understand the severity, right? We all go out to elect a president, right? Every 4 years, we're like, hey, that's our guy or gal. Like, we're going to get behind them. And then they pick their cabinet secretaries and they all come in. And what the problem is with these permanent state that's here is the layers between the bureaucracy where the cabinet secretaries are not actually dictating to their cabinet what to do. It's being done the opposite way. And then National Security Council makes its way into the White House and they add layers. And basically, that the government is running the presidency, even though we have a figurehead, so to speak. But that's what I was so hopeful about this. And when Chevron came down, I was like, yes, if we can get this plan with Chevron, oh man, like we have 10 years, 15 years, we can clean this up. And then all the propaganda went crazy. It just drives me nuts. But I think
Well,
people really need to understand what the deep state actually is. Can you elaborate while I have you? I don't want to keep you for too long, but I appreciate you coming up.
no, I mean, first, I wouldn't lose heart at all. Like this is very much, it's an issue, but we're working through, as an electorate, like really understanding it. I have a great faith in the American people that they see this, and this is very consonant with what President Trump set out to do. Now he encountered a great resistance. If you remember the day after the inauguration, there was almost 1 million people there calling themselves the resistance, and that's fundamentally anti-democratic. But the this what they did was really take hold of it and know that even when we win, we can lose because the deep state always knows how to like flip their shirts inside out and play defense, which is really this resistance, which is essentially. Throwing a wrench in any sort of agenda item you want to do. And it's done like you say. Just look at the sheer numbers to start with. Like I said, 4,000 over 2.2 million workers. You get into a federal agency, the political staff. I worked at HUD, so maybe there were 6,000 people in the headquarters building. There was maybe 100 political staff, for the entirety of the agency. I forget the tens of thousands of people work there. But you can't keep a handle on everything going on in the building. The a lot of the problem starts with just having the wrong people as political. So many people are coming from Washington. They have their own personal agenda. They're looking to monetize connections or kind of get in and get a nice little title and come back out and pop up higher at their law firm or whatever the case is. So, of those 4,000, we're not even getting quality operators in there. So the first challenge is really getting the right people in, bringing them from outside of Washington, teaching them the tricks of the trade, the tools that are going to make them successful, telling them the traps that are going to be laid, and really letting them go. But then having a major architecture in terms of having a place we're aiming for, and that's kind of what the plan is. You're never going to get out there unless you kind of put out this is what we need to aim for. So that I think is part of the book, what's in the book, but also what we work with in the Pillar 4. And our project is all at project2025.org if you're actually interested in learning or joining the database. But at base, it's a recruitment effort. It's all about getting these qualified operators into the government, because everything you're doing in the government, with the extremely technical things, we're not talking about putting politicals in there. That's another massive misinformation talking point of the left. But the person who makes that ultimate policy decision should be answerable to the president, because that is the essence of democracy, and that's what we're really talking about. So a lot of those ultimate policy answering positions, they can be learned, but the really core thing is that you have this intuitive political grasp, that you have that sense of the America First, right and wrong, and you can be able to tell that that's not in spirit with what the president was just sent to Washington to accomplish. So that's ultimately what we're doing here, is getting the right people in these jobs and demystifying it and making a course for people to come to Washington.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm gonna get to some of the hands. Well, and Paul, thank you for joining us and answering questions. Mike, Paul, if you guys have to bounce at any point, don't feel bad at all. I appreciate you guys being here. You guys are a wealth of information. Sometimes I know some things, but you guys definitely got your finger on the pulse. So I appreciate you guys being here. Um, one of the things, and again, I think that's why I wanted people. That's why I wanted you to kind of explain this for folks, so they weren't mystified. I know a lot of people come to me because I just happen to be the guy on the internet that's always hosting spaces, and I'm always on Twitter, and I put this content out. So they ask me a lot of questions about it. But I wanted people to hear from you directly. I wanted people to hear from Mike directly on this illegal voting stuff and what Oversight's investigating. That's why we do these things. But I've got a couple hands here. So if these are questions, Betty Rose or Jack, if you guys got questions for my guest here, I would greatly appreciate that. Betty Rose, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Mike, thoroughly enjoyed hearing what you had to say. And Trash, thank you for having this space tonight. I've learned so much from you and appreciate what you've been doing. And the other gentleman that just came up and explained uh, to some degree, for me at least, what the 2525 is. My, I'm not going to take long at all. I know that we can't count on our own representatives, senators, and other and those in the other house in Washington, except for a very few. I had had so much hope for Jim Jordan and the little crew that would come on Fox every night and talk about what they were doing and how they were fighting. I'm from North Carolina, and my Senator Burr, and so much disappointment, um, for me at least, in who I had put confidence in. Who can we really trust out of that small group who's in the House? Massey, I assume. I want names. And I don't know if you can give them to me. I don't know if it would be smart of any of you to give them to me,
Well,
but
Betty, I'll give you a short answer. Operate on the premise that you can't, but operate on the premise with proper pressure that the politics will be downstream from the culture. So if we have a culture of accountability and we have a culture of exposure and applying pressure, then that does move the needle. Mike, go ahead. I saw you on mute, but that would be my answer.
Oh, well, Betty, thank you so much. And you're a Tar Heel, I see from your bio, and I'm a Dookie, so we'll call it peace treaty for just a brief moment here. But I'll tell you, you have an
yikes.
absolute gem. Yikes, indeed. I might be a Tar Heel fan soon if we get any worse and more woke at Duke. But you have an absolute gem in North Carolina, and Congressman Dan Bishop. And I don't look fondly on too many people in the Mickey Mouse Club of the House of Representatives, but I think he is a rare person in terms of an elected leader who actually believes the things he says, not only believes them, but spends every waking moment advocating for them and thinking ways to strategically achieve them. And so you're blessed in North Carolina to have him as a congressman down there. I know he's running for attorney general. This is not a political endorsement. I do not do politics, but as just a very ideological and human level, you got a good one down there. I would also say this is a little bit of bias. Ron Johnson over in the Senate from Wisconsin is a true believer as well. And I know this over the course of almost a couple decades now since he first became a senator. I worked for him straight out of law school. He has been through probably the most illustrative time, right? You're not in Congress or politics at all. You come up to D.C. and the Tea Party wave, like so many others did. Not all of them stayed true to the principles. A lot of people who came in there have turned out different ways. But he has stayed in the Senate, seen up close and personal what they did to President Trump through the intelligence community, through these foreign policy kind of frauds. And I think he's come out of the other side as somebody who's most experienced on our side at the senatorial level, who really gets it. And then Mike Lee, Senator Mike Lee, is another absolutely terrific one. Here is what we call the white pill, the case for hope, is that we have seen in the U.S. Senate, which is obviously so much more important than the House, especially in our current political dynamic where the Senate can stop everything. The younger or newer the senator gets, generally the better they get. And so if you look at the tranche of Josh Hawley, J.D. Vance, Mike Lee, all these other guys that have since come in, even some of the older gentlemen who have come in recently, whether it's Senator Marshall or, others that I'm blanking on names, and I apologize to all the senators I've forgotten. There is a case for hope that the party at the highest levels in the Senate is being reborn. And so I'm optimistic. We just have to keep pushing in that direction.
Yeah, I would like to echo that notion, and also add in the Ron Johnson conversation, adding Grassley, because he's also been great. And he and Ron Johnson have worked on a lot of things. You guys know I know the Ukraine stuff inside and out. If you guys have never even read the Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson report on Hunter Biden, Burisma, and corruption, you need to. I've even talked. I actually have a friendship now with Andrei Telizhenko. I'm trying to get him into Congress. He's still actually not allowed in this country. But that's another story. That's another time, another story. We probably could have talked about that when we talked about Ukraine earlier. But that he was part of the Euromaidan coup. Anyway, long story boring. I'll put that aside. Base Mike Lee, love Mike Lee. But I've also been disappointed. I'm not going to name names, but I've talked to staffers with information that we had with receipts and everything, and they were like, the answer we got when we showed them this stuff was, wow, that's really big. I don't know how to attack that. And then crickets. And we're like, okay, but like it's happening right now. So again, I have my complaints, but I have my own complaints. But Mike's right. I think, Ron Johnson does great work. Base Mike Lee. I like Mike Lee a lot. There's some more fighters in there. And if you're listening, my apologies. I know some of them. And shout out to you guys. But that would be my answer, Betty Rose. And that's Mike's answer. So, Jack, go ahead.
Well, I got the privilege of getting a follow from Senator Lee a couple days ago, so I'm very honored by that. But I want to ask about Mike, like, where do you think our energy is going to be best put? Because I agree with you that a lot of this is going to be on us to get this out to help us win this election. And I'll give an example. So a couple days ago, I helped my friend Exclusionary blow up the story about Tampon Tim signing a bill that gave civil protections to pedophiles. And we were so successful to the point that we had like Moms for Liberty. We had Minnesota state legislators come on to discuss this. And then when eventually we saw that Elon was posting on the story. So I'm wondering with you, do you think that that's the best route to get this done? Or do you think it's more just about like the illegal efforts going on by the intel agencies or the get out the vote campaign being paid for by tax dollars? But what do you think is the best use of our time?
Yeah, that's not $1 million question or $1 billion question. It's $1 trillion question, really, when you think about it. I think we should understand that, and obviously I'm in the business of trying to break stories, find information, and push it out, but there are limitations to that. We all live in echo chambers. Everyone in this chat ideologically is aligned. We have to understand that we're never going to break through to those people. There's a reason why education is broken down, religion's broken down, the family's broken down. The net result is you have a civically uninformed populace who can vote, who is going to vote off very little information, and above and beyond policy, they're going to vote on social pressures, cultural pressures, and even racial pressures. And so the best arguments, the best exposures, Tim Walz was, stolen valor, whatever. Let's understand that when we speak about those things, we're preaching to the choir. we're not really making a difference beyond a few people who may be open-minded enough to listen to us in the first place. And so what do we do beyond that? And obviously I spend most of my time engaged in finding information that only reaches people who mostly agree with me. I spend most of my time trying to break out of that echo chamber. And I've used spaces like this as highly beneficial, but not for the purpose of changing minds. We're here to sharpen each other to go out from this space and speak to other people and spread the message. So we can't, I view Twitter as a way to keep up with like-minded people, to follow news, but not as a way to like evangelize the ideology or the cause, or, you know, let alone politics, which obviously, as I've said a million times, as a caveat, I can't do. And so it's human to human interaction. The best thing you can do at the end of the day, honestly, is start a family, raise children, go to church, make money, defend yourself, and convince other people that is the best way to live. That, if we all do enough of that, we win, because then everything else changes in our direction. And the problem is not enough of us have done that. I mean, not talking about this chat, I'm talking about a country. And then we're up against some truly evil forces that want to change this country. They want to change the rules of who gets to vote in this country, who gets to be in the country. And so the second I'll end here is what the left wants more, and why they put so many people in jail with any connection to January 6th, why they put abortion clinic protesters in jail, why they go after parents at school board. It's not because they want to lock people up necessarily. It's because they want to scare other people off. And we need to not give that legitimacy, because as soon as they lose the legitimacy of their actions and the legitimacy of, you know, a rigged election, they are a feckless leader, and they ultimately need one thing from us and one thing alone. And that is for us to convey a sense of legitimacy upon what they are doing, to act like it is some sort of fair rules game and the legal outcome, and they're painting within the lines. And so when I speak to people, I tell them, don't give them that. That is to be earned. They work for you. We are a sovereign country, and we have rights and a constitution that protect us from the government. Do not just automatically presume that because the media tells you it and the government tells you it, it's legitimate. Because the one thing that Harris wants, that Biden wanted, never got, what Obama wanted, was for us to pretend he was a legitimate, fair, and playing by the rules. And so that's why they want to punish us for saying things like they're rigging the election right now. And so we got to keep that up, and we can't let ourselves be conquered and silenced.
Yeah, I'd like to echo those sentiments. And, you know, so that's why I believe that the pressure is required. This is why, again, this is not self-promotion. What I'm saying is anything tangible. That's why I record these spaces. That's why I put them in my highlights tabs, because you can actually share these links out to your private Facebook groups, your public Facebook groups. You can share them all over social media. You can share them with family. And they said, oh, our legals aren't voting. Okay, well, here's a space when I had, you know, the guys from Oversight Project and Muckraker actually breaking the story. Here's the video. Here's the receipts. That's what you need to be doing, number one. But I think that, right, the message overall needs to be, we need to get back to what made this country great again, and that's families and religion and taking care of yourselves and taking care of one another, and try to break through the noise that way. So, yeah, Mike.
I
Or, hey,
was
Paul. Yeah.
I was just gonna say spot on, Trash. Like that is it. It's not that complicated. We need to look to human history. This is what makes or break a civilization, right? It is individualized family units, religion, commonality, language, shared bonds, a strong civil society, a recorded history, a patriotism. All those things aren't new. We're in the process of either restoring those things or creating new institutions to incubate those things. And so the old saying is, you may not like politics, or you may not be concerned with politics, but politics is concerned with you. It's time to get involved, because all of the things that I just listed can be taken away from you. They all already have, to some degree, been taken away from you. And those in this space who are older have seen that over time. And so we're in a well, not a hot war, but some sort of cold civil war, an ideological war, a historical and civilizational war. And it's about time we start acting like it. And so I would That's how I build my life, and that's how I encourage everyone else to.
Yep, I agree. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, Trash. The questioner said, "What can we do in the next 3 months, like value wise?" I agree with all what you're saying. I think in your small sphere of influence, we need to get out there and be bold, right? And that means taking the opportunities when you're in a group setting, whether it's in church or at the PTA night or at your coworkers, standing up and saying something bold, and you'll be amazed at how many people come up to you afterwards. But really, also being cogent and talking to people that might not be totally on our side, figuring out what really moves the needle for them, and sharpening your skills. And then second, I would also say, like, look, it's not too late to get engaged and volunteer in these things. I'm amazed that when you get to the upper levels of this stuff, um, we 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 are a very thin team. I hate to say it. The ranks of people who are competent, who can organize, who have kind of systems engineering abilities, who can kind of get in. Everybody needs to kind of lend whatever they're good at, but don't think it's too late. And it's all about your willingness to put the time in. But certainly, you just go into your state committee or your whatever the case is, an area you can work on. It's not too late to do that. As someone who's always been engaged in either election integrity or working kind of get out the vote, totally do that. Just do it at a level that's commensurate with your skill set. Don't be licking envelopes if you're somebody who's like run a 2,000 person division. But there's a space there, and you'll be amazed at how quickly you can move up if you're ready to really give. So there's my two thoughts, and remember, every time you're going out there, radiate positivity. No one wants to really be the kind of the black hat stuff can get like a contagion. I do think right now though we have to course correct, and so people being critical are not necessarily black hats. They're realists, and as someone who saw this train going down the track in 2020, and then I was there on the ground afterwards, and just it's there's no way to fix the election after the fact, and if we don't get it done now, we are really going to be in a problem in 2028. So those are my thoughts, how to do this in the next 3 months. But 3 months we can still, I mean, anybody who played competitive sports knows that the fourth quarter is when you turn it on, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, and Paul, I want to echo those sentiments, and I want to say something to people. If you guys, those of you that have followed me, that have listened to my spaces, when I talk about the censorship industrial complex, when I talk about Project 2025, when I talk about a lot of these things, what's my common sentiment? My common sentiment is, hey, you and I probably disagree politically on something, or many things, or like you think we do. But don't you want to get to a place where we can sit down at the table and hash out those ideas and differences and try to find a compromise? Because that's not what we have. Therefore, join me, help me beat this monster of censorship or lawfare, and then we'll get back to a place where we can sit down and figure out where we disagree, where we agree, and we can move forward. The second thing I want to say is this, is that there are a lot of people shaking loose every day right now from their legacy media fog that they've been in for some time, and are finding some truths. I'm begging everybody in this space, with your family, with your friends. I had to do this with my own sister. She hasn't talked to me in 3 years because I questioned her on something during COVID. It's crazy, but they're shaking loose. And when they shake loose, don't say, well, where have you been the whole time? We told you, I told you, you were being lied to. What the hell's wrong with you? No, no. Hey, what shook you loose? Or hey, what questions do you have? Welcome. What can I answer for you? What can I show you? What else would you like to see? What do you have questions about? I mean, like, I still see people touting the narrative of very fine people hoax on both sides. Like, guys, I mean, but again, you can't get mad or frustrated with these people. Another thing, and I'll shut up. I held spaces the last couple years, and I would do one every 6 months, and it was I called it the red pill space. And what it was come up and tell your story of what woke you up or shook you loose to start asking questions. And the one thing that I found, I
I expected many similar events from everybody that came up. We're talking thousands of people were listening. It was a full panel. People were rotating in and out. I never heard the same thing twice. By never hearing the same thing twice, that told me that I have to be willing to meet people where they're at and be ready to receive them if they're asking questions. And so the last thing that you can do in this next 3 months is try to browbeat, chastise, or not be welcoming and receiving of somebody that's starting to ask questions because they finally saw something, because there's finally a crack in the dam of influence, censorship, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I'll say there. All right, so let me get to the hands. I believe, Janet, you were next in Jersey Girl.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. Yeah, I just want to say the same thing I always say. I put down in the bubble down below the link for you to sign up and work the polls. Okay, that means counting the votes, checking ID, whatever your state does and how they set that up. I put a link on there for you to be able to go to your state, find out, and sign up. Because if we're sitting there, they're not going to cheat in front of you. And we need a person in every polling station and try to keep this election as fair as we possibly can. And this is the way you and I, all of us in America that want to see freedom ring, we can save our country by working the polls and trying to stop the cheat. And it doesn't matter whether you're independent, a Democrat, or a Republican. We all should be willing to do our duty for our country. And it should start at home. And we take back our states, and we'll be able to take back the federal government. So that's what I'm going to ask everyone. Please, if you got a chance to do it this year, we need it very bad. Our country is going to fall if we do not step in and help Trump and help all the others for down ballot to get a fair chance to win by a fair election. Thank you for letting me speak, and God bless America.
Thanks, Janet. And Mike, I mean, she's talking about the poll workers thing. You and I and Millie, we've talked with you and we've shown you some things where a lot of these leftist groups, these hyper left wing, dark money, hyper partisan groups that are receiving funding through an executive order 14019, which you guys broke, and have the tranche of documents. It's still not everyone's gone through all that, by the way. If you could, Mike, if you could somehow find that and retweet it so people can go through it. I got a lot of diggers in this space and they'll go through it. But that's one of the main things that they've been focusing on, was staffing, training young people to be poll workers, to oversaturate the polls from preventing people like that Janet was just speaking to from entering as a poll worker. I mean, you've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely happening. In its simplest explanation, as soon as the Biden-Harris administration started, which was always downstream of Obama world, in March, so 2 months in, so within the first 100 days, they basically announced an executive order where they were going to mobilize the entire federal government to work hand in glove with exclusively left-wing nonprofits for the purposes of get out the vote. And then they were going to take this machine and think about the awesome powers. We're talking trillions of dollars at this point. When you account for the 3 million person federal workforce, the spread of agencies, the point of contact sales for the welfare agencies where people get benefits, prisons, Indian reservations, on and on. And so that's an awesome power that was basically handed over to a dark money, gigantic left-wing enterprise to only be directionally applied in deep blue areas. So pause for a second. There is a argument that how can you oppose the federal government helping people get registered to vote, or encouraging them, or picking them and activating them? Well, imagine if that machinery was turned over to the Heritage Foundation and I was in charge of it. And I took that machine and pointed it only at NASCAR races in red areas of swing states. People would be apoplectic. Rachel Maddow would run out of breath. It would be an attack on democracy like no one's ever seen. Well, that's happening right now. And by the way, your Republican Congress funded it if you vote that way. And so this group, Demos, DEMOS, was an Obama group. Susan Rice is involved. Obama's clearly involved, and a couple other people. they bragged that by using the government for this purpose, they could register 3 million Democrats. The last election, to the extent you trust the official tallies, which I don't, came down to 40,000 votes. 40,000 and 3 million is a big difference. And so that's what we're up against. So when you think about everything that you could do to even the scales, do 40 times that, 50 times that, grab 50 more people, get involved, because the American people should decide this election. It shouldn't be the elected officials, quote unquote, or the powers, the people who hold the guns, the badges, etc., that get to use the force of government by the barrel of a gun if you don't comply, put you in prison if you question it. They don't get to decide who gets to be the next president. That is why we fought the Revolutionary War. That is why we have this experiment. And we're backsliding very, very hard right now. And we have a free, fair, and legal chance to stop it. The next chance, I hope, is free, fair, and legal, to go out there and do everything we can. But if we keep it this trajectory, we may not have another clean shot again. It gets harder every single time. So if you're ever considering getting involved in civic life, do it now and spend whatever you would anticipate spending over the next 20 years. Spend that all this year.
Yeah, and Mike, again, I want to make the point. I am trying to help the people that hate me ideologically. I'm trying to help them have a country left where you don't have a top-down authoritarian Chinese CCP style governance, which everyone, both on the right and left, uniparty, seems destined to want to have because it seemed like a positive experience when they were over visiting in China. I'm trying to help people that hate me because I'm trying to have a country where I can sit down and disagree with you again. Like I'm 43 years old. I lived through the 90s. I know what the 2000s looked like. Yes, of course, we can make all these things about what happened on the left or the right. Like I'm not a deeply partisan guy. The stuff that I attack, the stuff that I go after is trying to bring sanity back to a government and what our constitution says to begin with. And it gets lost in politics, Mike.
You're 100% right, Trash. I mean, you talked to me 10 years ago, I would have defended to the tilt every single part of whatever the platform of the party was as it was, put out, because I'm a loyal soldier. I really don't care about that stuff anymore at all. In fact, in my daily life outside of work, I probably am 10% in interacting with people who are either non-civically interested or lean pretty hard left. I live in friggin' Maryland, for God's sakes. But I'll tell you this, a lot of people are seeing things for what they are. The biggest problem right now is not political or policy. It's cultural and it's social. It's that to raise your hand and say you're going to vote for Donald J. Trump or you're a MAGA extremist or something comes with massive consequence. And I know a lot of people will whisper to me, particularly after President Trump was shot in the face. A lot of my left leaning friends reached out and said things, first, like, hey man, hope you're doing okay. That was awful. And then second, like, I can't believe it's gone this far. Like, I'm rethinking things. There's a lot more independent thinkers out there than we realize. And the problem I see is not that we aren't making cogent policy arguments to them or they don't see the damage. It's that we have not provided a cultural and social safe haven for them. In that if somebody in their workplace decided one day to just change their mind publicly, it would lose them massive amounts of friends, etc. They would get fired. They'd worry about a million downfield consequences. And so to me, I think that is one of the more creative things and entrepreneurial things we should be thinking about, how to make being what is in fact countercultural now cool again, and being traditional is now countercultural. And so I don't know the solution. I just know the problem, and I think that's what we should be solving.
Yeah, agreed. And that's what I've been attempting to do while also people understand my politics. But every conversation, you guys can go back and listen to all my spaces. They really aren't political at all, unless it's talking about establishment Republican sabotage, which I lined out definitively that I'm supposed to be that guy for, that I'm exposing and naming names. Like, I mean, like, I'll save the names because I got Paul and Mike in here. I don't want to get you guys in trouble for whatever reasons, but I'll leave the names out of it for now. But people know I've already done it. But it's the cultural. It's being able to be receptive to people that are asking questions and being like, look, dude, like, look, I know you don't agree with my politics, but like, you're a fellow human. You're an American. You're a taxpayer. Like, do you want to join a conversation with me about what the heck's going on here? I think that's the right play, and that's what I've been doing for years now, and I'll continue to do. And I think that all of us should probably start getting in the habit of doing that. And I think that we will have a healthier country in 10 years if we start to that process. But that doesn't mean the pressure needs to stop. That means the lawsuits that Oversight's doing, that America First Legal's doing, all these guys that are actually trying to get to this, the AGs like Andrew Bailey in Missouri, that kind of stuff does move the needle because you have you have the receipts, you have discovery, you have the documents, you have tangible proof. It supersedes politics. So we need to get there. Mrs. Positive, go ahead. Then I'm going to go to Jersey Girl, Whole Grain, and Mike. Go ahead.
Thank you. What a great discussion, and I'm learning more and more. And thank you, Trash. You're a trooper. So I'm gonna give you a picture here that happened in 2022. Are there any precinct judges here in this group here? Guess not.
I don't think so. No.
Okay, well, let me tell you what happened. So, two Papa Bears, part of the Moms for Liberty, there were two husbands. One was a businessman, the other one was a dentist. And in 2022, we are facing in our county, which is 3,700 voters. We all pretty much know each other because we see each other weekly because we show up to our meetings and we see our judges, we see our city council, we see our mayor, we see our city attorneys. And so word got out that we were going to have a transgender two teachers that wanted to be getting on the teachers council and the which the school board, and then integrate themselves into the school library. So those two fathers panicked. So what they did when it became in 2022 to vote for the school board, he said, "Let me tell you what I'm going to do." And he went into where we vote, which is the town hall, and he went to the city mayor, and he also went to the city attorney, and he said, "You know what? I've got my attorney here." And he said, "We're going to do this. We're going to vote that you're making us use the ES&S machine, which is very close. It's a Heart ES&S machine similar to Dominion. They say Heart Civics is not connected to the internet. We proved it was." And he said, "Now that you did that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to vote like you make me vote, but I'm going to make sure this is a fair election. So we're going to vote again." So we did 1,500 more votes a second time in the next room over, and everybody stood in line for 3 hours to do so. Then they hand counted. So my question is, you need to look for plan B. Is the machines going to go out? Probably. Are hanky panky going to happen? Probably. Which one of us, I know my husband is, which one of us going to stand up and say, "You're not going to stop us. We can take these ballots that are printed. We can hand count them. We're going to stay here." Because if you do this for every precinct and you have a plan B, they cannot force you to use those machines. And they cannot, and the city attorney said that, they cannot stop you from voting a different way. And the two fathers said, "I'm just trying to make it fair." This was a certified uh, election that they did. It was They did an affidavit, and the judge was there. So it was an election judge that stayed later while they hand counted 1,500 votes.
Yeah,
Even though
yeah.
there's so
Yeah,
I
there's a
want
lot of there's a lot of things you can do. There's also like as an example, I'm in Maricopa County. Like, listen, I'm in Maricopa County, Arizona. We've got a lot of problems. Okay, you pointed to one thing. Everybody go out and vote. If you can vote early, go vote. Okay, just go vote early. Don't do same day because all the shenanigans. Trust me, I'm in Maricopa County. I know what happened in 2022. Don't vote same day. Okay, go out and vote early. Second thing that I noticed. You can do those things, Mrs. Positive. That's actually great. If you can replicate that across the country, given the laws, great. I think you should do that. I think you should look into that. I think everybody should take every advantage they can. I'll give you another example. The school board here in the richest city in Phoenix. I just live just outside of Paradise Valley. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and in Paradise Valley, they had some problems with the school board and the education and what was being taught in schools. Well, I went to vote just back in July. We had like kind of like it's kind of like a loose primary. The primaries already happened because I voted in the primaries earlier. but it was like a primary runoff, and there were some more votes and some more things up. So I went and voted. Every single member that was looking to replace the Board of Education in Paradise Valley was out there talking to us as we entered into the church to go vote at the voting center. And they were saying, "Hey, they said, hey, we are people who are running in November to replace the school board, and we want to introduce ourselves." And I was like, "Wait, Paradise Valley ISD?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, so you guys, what are you guys looking to replace?" They're like, "Getting rid of this gender stuff that they're pushing through our Board of Education. We want to replace these people." And so they were standing there asking me for their vote in November. It's like, this is happening all over the country. This is the stuff that you can do, that you can affect change. And they were standing there in, like, trust me, it's Arizona, guys. I went at 6:30 p.m. after I came home from the office. At 6:30 p.m. here in Arizona, in Scottsdale, it's still 100 plus degrees. And they were standing out there introducing themselves saying, "Hey, we are the people who are trying to take over the school board to fix the education problem. Please consider voting for us in November." These are parents that said, "You know what, I've had enough." So there's many things that you can do. If you could duplicate that, Mrs. Positive, or around the country wherever it's legal, do it. There's a lot of people that are doing it, and that's the point. It's not, and like what Mike said earlier, or what Paul said earlier, there's not a silver bullet. There's not a one fix. There's not a one size fits all plan here. I think it requires everyone to say, "I take my civic duty seriously. I'd like to plant a seed to a tree of which I would never enjoy its shade." And if we can get back to that kind of philosophy as a country that we once were, that's saying, "I'm going to plant the seed right now for this tree. I will never enjoy its shade. However, somebody like me in the future, that tree will grow and they'll be able to enjoy that shade in that open field during the heat." And we have to get back to that kind of philosophy. And that's what I think Mike was kind of touching on a little bit. I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths, but that's essentially the theme of what we're talking about here. And yes, the next 90 days is really important. I think everyone should get involved. But it's things like that give me hope. That is the white pill. That there are people doing this stuff. That's like, no, we've had enough. So I don't know, Mike, Paul, you guys are still rocking with me. I can't believe you guys are still here, because like I'm on left coast time, so it's only 8 o'clock for me. Like, I'm just getting started. But like, if you guys want to bail, man, feel free by all means.
I'll bail, but not before I say God bless America and to call one great American out, Paul Dans. No guy has seen the vision before most of us saw it, stayed the course, and is charting a new path. And just honored to have, really been in the trenches with him and look forward to getting out of the trenches on the front lines with him.
Yeah, man, I want to echo those sentiments, Mike. I'm reacting to the work that he did. And so, Paul, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time that you've given us here. I agree with that vision. We see it, and we're out here working for it. So, Mike, all your work at Oversight, thank you so much before you bail. Really appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon. We'll go over many things. And, Paul, if you want to add any final words before you bail, but I appreciate you. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, yeah, no, Trash, thank you for having me. And Mike, it's always a pleasure. I jumped on to listen to my friend Mike. But yeah, the fact that you guys are all listening here and you're all really engaged is the very first step. And I was a person, I'm literally sitting at my kitchen table here. I just finished my beer, so it is probably time to go to bed. But it's getting off that kitchen table and getting out and doing stuff like the school board stuff we were talking about. um you just have to realize the system, they've been very clever at rigging this thing. And use work smart when you do stuff. Like, I was just thinking when I went to vote, and I'm in this business, right? Elections, the most important thing I do is go down to the precinct and vote. And we got four little kids, so I'm all about getting the right people on the school board. Well, I get down there, and this is a nonpartisan school board election. I don't know who's good and who's bad. And it's these kind of dumb things where, like, even at that micro level, and I live in South Carolina, it's like it's hard to figure out who's on the right side. So when you see a problem, like a minor problem like that, fix it. Like, stand up and do it. There's never going to be one solution thing. It's just going to be the entirety of us all moving out in a forward direction, making the change. So I would look forward to joining you guys again in the future. Trash, let me
I
know.
would
But
love to. Yeah.
just
I,
Yeah, I just say God bless everyone. Keep the faith and keep at it.
I appreciate you, Paul. Thank you so much. Hey, Mike, before you bounce, we do have somebody on stage that wanted to ask you a question. But Paul, you're absolutely right, and I really appreciate you. And in the future, when we do these spaces, I'll make sure I send you a DM to come on in. And if you can, great. If you can't make it, that's fine too. But I'll be doing these forever. I always do them. So I appreciate you.
My pleasure. Good
Thank
night,
you.
all.
Jersey Girl, you had a question for Mike before he bounces. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. Oh my God, Mike, let me just tell you, you were fantastic tonight. You taught me so much. You taught me to follow the money, and you know, you gave me such insight. Can you hear me, guys?
We can
Yeah, we
hear
can
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the insight with and you were nonpartisan, from Clinton to this to this to this, and follow the money, and it was just so. And Trash, I love you, but Mike, I followed you tonight, and I cannot wait to follow more of your content. And my question is, it's been so fucking long. Sorry, I don't remember even what it was, but I think I'd like to know, with these election machines, you alluded to that. Nobody has done anything in this party, in the GOP. And I also would like to say that you've been kind of nonpartisan with your message, which is refreshing. You just give the facts, and it's fantastic. But they've done nothing with the elections, all of these states, and you've alluded to that. And how do we overcome that in this late game? And just fantastic content. And Trash, thank you so much. And I know you're working 3 jobs, and I just love you for that. But that's my question to you, Mike. Like, how do we push the GOP to fix this and in this short time?
Well, thank you so much, Jersey Girl. That was a very, very kind thing to say. And as someone who just was in Jersey, was in Wildwood, New Jersey, and will be back there in a couple of weeks. And I think my mom paid you to say that. So thank you. And she would agree with also everything you just said. I want to talk about the machines. You brought something very important up. And I know this is third rail. It'll cost you $1 billion if you're a media company to talk about it. It's you're a spooky Looney Tune with tinfoil on your head if you bring up the machines. Let me bring up a couple facts. Maduro. Oh, let's start a little earlier. Biden was overthrown. Okay, and whatever veneer of American democracy or politics that is acceptable for our population, that was an overthrow of the government. It was a coup. Not like they thought January 6th was a coup, but we actually just lived through a coup of money in politics removing a president. He's not the president. He hasn't been the president for a while. We just saw that happen before our eyes. So what happened a couple of weeks after that? Maduro lost an election that surprised everyone internationally. Why did he lose by so much? That guy runs we were told, an authoritarian government where he controls every last thing. Maybe the machines didn't work for him. Has anyone thought about that? Then I think it was late last week, the COO and a bunch of senior leadership of Smartmatic, okay, they were indicted by Biden's Department of Justice. That's interesting. Why would Biden do something to indict, something that tends towards the theory that they've tried to call crazy? Couple reasons that I can think of. Maybe he's a little upset about what just happened to him, that he got overthrown, and maybe he wanted to throw some shade at the machinery of the people who overthrew him. Could be. Maybe on the other hand, they realized that it was bad that the voting machines got caught paying off the Filipino government. That's also bad. So maybe they wanted a controlled explosion. I don't know the answer. I just am thinking through plausible, logical reasons why a couple of weeks before the Democrat National Convention, the Democrat administration would do such a high-profile indictment at this time when the evidence existed for a while. And then I'll draw you to one more fact. Politico ran an interesting piece a couple days ago, I think yesterday or the day before, reporting on a conference of hackers in Las Vegas. That's a much heralded conference where they get them all together. I think it's called DEF CON. Well, the purpose of this was for the hackers to test out voting equipment. They were able to, not with any difficulty, actually very easily hack all the voting machines, and not only the voting machines, but the tabulators, the machines we were told that are, the safe ones. And so the reason I introduce all these facts is for you to draw your own conclusions. But for me, this is a strong trend line that we're in trouble. And one last thing. The hackers and the politicians admitted after that piece came out, there's not enough time to fix the machines.
Oh,
That
it's
being
so
said,
sad. How do we fix this? Like how can we fix
Jersey girl.
this? Yeah,
Well, Jersey girl. So here's Mike. Let me just add one piece in this, because what you said is absolutely correct. I've been following it as well, but I've also been following ambassadors like Michael McFaul, like color revolutionary extraordinaires, paying intently focus on what was going on in Venezuela. It told me a lot. Our State Department also had some thoughts, and that's another topic for another day. But I'll say this: that same DEF CON hacked those machines years ago. Matter of fact, back in 2012, I believe the New York Times was even reporting on the safety and efficacy of the voting machines and tabulators and all those things. But I'll say this: you have to have the perception of the public, Jersey girl. You have to have the perception of the public that, yes, this is a free and fair election. It's fine for any of that to work. So, in my opinion, Mike, I'm not going to speak for you. I want to get your reply on this, but in my opinion, you need to set the culture and prevent the public in any way possible of accepting any kind of shenanigans that this is a normal, free process. You actually have to get them discerning from jump, because if the perception doesn't maintain through 51% of the public, they won't be able to pull it off. That's the only way that I see through this, Mike. You might have a different idea, but for me, the only way I see through this is to making sure that the perception is, no, we got eyes on this. We're watching it. Bullshit.
Truth. Yeah, truth.
You guys are both absolutely right. The short answer is we have to do everything at once, and we can't miss a single thing. And so trash, the reason why they're doing this psychological conditioning, that Harris has this like unnatural boom in the polls is inevitable, is for exactly the reasons you just proffered. That being said, just ruining the legitimacy, while critical and indispensable in a condition that's absolutely necessary, is not enough. We need to do, like I said earlier, everything we wanted to do for the next 20 years in the next 3 months in terms of civic engagement, whether it's you want to be a poll watcher. I don't care what party you are. Go watch the polls, get involved. Even if you're apolitical, just spend an interesting day standing there and just seeing for yourself what's going on. Do all of those things. I mean, like, we're up in an unfair fight for free people who want a free and fair system. And so we have to
stand by. The funny thing is, I signed up to be a poll watcher. I have not heard back from the person from Lara Trump's. I was on Phenom, and I signed up. Nobody called me. Nobody's called me.
Yeah, and that's because, again, you've got Katie Hobbs, and listen, that's.
I'm in New Jersey.
Well, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But there are other ways. Hang on, Mike. Go ahead and finish, and then I'll get to you, Jersey. I promise.
Okay, go ahead.
No, I think Jersey probably is better on this than I am, because she's living through it, trying to get involved. But here's the point I'll end on is we got to all take a firecracker, stick it on her backside, and run and run and run. That's how we have to act. I've lost a football game 72-7 once. And you know what? Got the most tackles of my life in it. And that's how we have to play. Every last play, every inch, every down, every second. We have to just live like we're dying. To quote, who is it, Kenny Chesney or Tim McGraw? I don't even know. And I don't pretend to know all the answers. I don't. I'm just a guy who observes these things, right? And I come to my own conclusions. But the one conclusion I'll challenge anybody on is whatever path you think is right, whatever twist and turn, where the money should go, where it shouldn't go, what candidate, what can not, it doesn't, whatever. To get down any of those roads, you have to charge through a lot of brush. And the first thing we need to do is cultivate this mentality of it's an uphill fight. We're going to win it. And you just have to fight. And it's a full-time job, honestly. Like, we all need to be engaged as much as possible in this.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mike, I appreciate you. Mike, I appreciate you. Jersey Girl, I'll let you have a final word. But Mike, thanks for coming in and backing me up on this space. I really appreciate you. Obviously, I would consider you a friend at this point. And so we've got a lot of work to do. Stay tuned, guys.
All right, wait,
I
wait,
will
stand
have.
by. My final word is trash. I want to thank you for your diligence and your commitment. And I know in the past that you know your job and people trying to get you. I thank you so much, Trash. And my sister says she's Jersey Girl. I'm Jersey Girl's sister. She says that she loves your voice. So silly, but anyway. Having said that, but Mike, listening to you tonight, I followed you. I can't wait to have more content from you, and I will continue to follow you both. Thank you so much, and I love you guys for all the
Uh,
work you do.
Thank you for the kind words, Jersey Girl. If you go to at Oversight PR, at Oversight PR, Oversight Project, Mike heads that up. That's where all the content comes from. Go follow there. Obviously, I will have spaces with those guys. Anytime a new drop comes out, we will have spaces. We'll break it down. We'll bring the experts in to talk about it. So thank you. I appreciate it. And shout out to your sister. I do have an amazing voice. All right, Mike. I know it's right coast time. If you got to bail, you got to bail. I'm gonna take these guys into it. I'm gonna explain the Barbara Streisand joke to people. So if you want to,
All right, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna take the nice invitation to leave. Thank you all. Crash, you the man.
all right, Mike. Thanks. Shout out, homie. All right. So I promised that I would explain my Barbara Streisand tweet. All right. So I will put it up in the nest. So I'll explain this joke. I said I would explain it tonight in the space. I have not yet. I'm gonna do it now, and it's hilarious. So. I was talking earlier about how I got to participate in the Transition Integrity Project 2024. And this was some of the folks at Heritage, Oversight Project, some right wing journalists, some right wing media people. We had some bipartisan Congress people. So we had a senator, a former Democrat senator out of New Jersey, of all places, play Joe Biden in this war game exercise that we did called the Transition Integrity Project 2024. And one of the roles, because we ran two concurrent war games. We had a red team and a blue team, and we ran two concurrent war games. And on the red team, me and Millie Weaver were playing the role of Antifa and BLM and all the leftist groups. On the blue side, I played the House Republicans, right? So we would have moves, we would have scenarios, and we would have to react to them. A lot of the stuff that we actually war gamed out, and there was, I think we had like 147 people, I think, playing in these games. A lot of the scenarios that we war gamed out are actually happening in real time. Iran is being one of them. Uh, Election challenges, which we believe will be coming up. But the Barbara Streisand thing, I put it up in the nest. So, Transition Integrity Project, the official account put out 6 hours ago. There is a call with Jewish Women for Kamala call. And the person that's actually heading it up is Barbara Streisand. Now, to the normal person, you'd be like, "Why is that funny? That makes no sense to me." Well, because in the war game, me and Millie, as part of like the pro Hamas Antifa BLM crew, we kidnapped Barbara Streisand in the war game. we broke into her house. We broke into her mansion. Like, you guys. Okay, so let me actually reframe this again before I go further. You guys are familiar with the Streisand effect, right? The Streisand effect, what the definition of that was Barbara Streisand came out and said, please stop sharing pictures and the location of my home. Please stop doing that. And what ended up happening because she did that was the entire public was sharing photos and the location of her home, of Barbara Streisand's home. It's called the Streisand effect. If you don't want something to get oxygen or air, you don't then go out and talk about said thing and try to create a narrative around it and prevent it from getting out, because the Streisand effect is everybody on the internet and in the world will talk about it because you told them not to talk about it. It's called the Streisand effect. Well, so Millie and I were like, all right, so I think what we'll do is we'll have the pro Hamas Antifa BLM people break into Barbara Streisand home and hold her hostage, right? And so that was a scenario that we floated in the war game. It was cut down quickly because they were like, okay, that's a little over the top. We're like, I know, but like also these people were that stupid, right?
but it was more of like a messaging thing saying, remember the Streisand effect. Remember these celebrities that like Rob Reiners of the world or Stephen King or all these people that get involved in all these narratives. And it actually, when they point something out to attack it, it actually elevates it and Streisand affects it. So we were kind of like hearkening back to like the Israeli Olympia story from the Olympics in Munich, if you guys remember, and tragically all of them died when they held them hostage, and we were like, let's do it. So that was a move that we made in the war game that a bunch of like Antifa, BLM people, pro Hamas people actually took Barbara Streisand hostage and forced the Biden DOJ at the time, because this was early in the election cycle. This was like around August, September. It forced the Biden administration to then have to respond through their DOJ of how they were going to handle that situation, because a lot of those people who are pro Hamas people, um, pro Hamas or free Palestine people are leftists. These are Sunrise Movement people. These are the same like Lisa Fithian types. Lisa Fithian, who I identified at Columbia University, that ended up going viral because I recognized her. I'm like, that's Lisa Fithian. She's the Antifa whisperer. She's the BLM whisperer. She's the shut down DC Sunrise Movement person. She's the person that was involved in the Arab Spring and what happened in Egypt. She created all these protest movements that upended governments and created coups. She was at the Columbia protests, anti-Israel, pro-Palestine slash Hamas protests at Columbia University when they overtook that building and they held it for a few days. Lisa Fithian was there. So we were like, this is the move they're going to make. And so when I see Barbara Streisand holding a Jewish Women for Kamala call and Project 2025. I'm sorry. Transition Integrity Project 2024 put out the tweet saying, with like the looky eye meme. It was so beyond hilarious to me because that's exactly what they were talking about there. It's up in the nest. Go look at it. But that's the backstory on why that's so funny. It's kind of funny too, but it's rooted in truth. And that was part of the war games that we did. It was a lot of fun. I was very thankful to participate in it. But that's why that tweet is so funny to me, because and we left that out of the final report because it was a little hyperbolic, it was a little over the top. We wanted the war games to be taken seriously, but it was still, that's the story. That's why I promised everybody that I would tell that story here in the space, and that's what that's about. It's really funny. Mike, go ahead and I'll go to David.
All right, Trash. I appreciate it, buddy. Great, awesome space here. I'm not going to tell you what state I live in, but I live in the South. I guess you can tell by my voice, my accent. But
I'd say there's some context clues there. Yeah, I'd say so.
okay, down here, we're a totally solid red state. Okay, and there's something that really weird happened like 3 weeks ago. I, I I go to the beer store and I'm walking in, and the two girls behind the counter are all freaked out, and I'm like, "What's wrong?" And they said, "We just had all these illegals walking down the street. They completely took over our store, and they bought all this beer and stuff, and none of them could speak English at all, and not a one of them in a deep red state in the South." And so I get home, and everybody, we got two red lights in this town, okay? We're just a little bitty town, and we have two hotels here. I get a phone call from a friend. Everybody knows everybody here. I get a phone call from a friend. He's like, "Did you hear about the two hotels?" And I'm like, "No, what?" And he says, "They've been bought by NGOs, and they're housing 250 illegals in them, and they're here to vote, but they're not citizens." And so what this guy did was he went to the sheriff and he told him, and they did all the background and research and found it all out. And the sheriff says, "Hell no, not in my town." And so now this guy has got. I'm 64 years old, so I'm not going to get into violence or anything, but unless I have to protect my family. But anyway, to make a long story short, they're going to vote on the day of. That's their whole thing because we don't have early voting here. We have paper ballots, and you have to go vote. And so we've got a group of people in my town, about 300 of them, along with the sheriff and the sheriff's department. They're going to show up at these two hotels. They are going to hold these illegals at gunpoint. All the citizens that show up, including the sheriff's department, and keep them from going to vote. And this is happening in a deep, deep red state. So if it's happening here like that, imagine what is going on up there where you guys are and out there where you are. And it's just incredible to me what is going on in this United States. I have been with Trump since the very beginning. I believe in one thing, and that's the Constitution and God and guns. And, well, that's three things. But, you know, I mean, you got to have the right to protect yourself. You got to be a God fearing person. You've got to be able to raise your family, protect your family, and do all these things and protect your grandkids. And down here, we don't tolerate, that, forgive me for saying this, but I'll just say bullshit. We just don't tolerate it. And but that's what's going on down here. So if it's happening here, imagine what's going on where you guys are. And so I just wanted to make that statement. But it's so funny that they would buy these two places, refurbish them, move all these immigrants in that are here illegally. They're not even citizens, but yet they're going to try to get them to vote. This is the Democratic Party trying to do this. So I just want everybody to know this is going on everywhere. And I'll land my plane there, guys. And I really appreciate you letting me speak my piece. Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate you coming up and speaking your piece. To be clear, like I love this country and I love people in it. Like listen, everybody knows that like I always make the joke like I hate people. I hate people as a royal word. But I love people. I love Americans. I want to hear what you got to say. I was trying to use context clues to figure out where you're at. And I'm not getting there, but I've narrowed it down to two states because there's no way in hell you're talking about Georgia, even though I saw some content from you. My my best guess that I had was Alabama was my guess. You don't have to verify it, but that's
Trash, you are really, really close. I
yeah.
mean,
So
you're
Mississippi then. So
real
Mississippi then.
close.
So it's Mississippi
Uh,
then.
I I'm gonna plead the fifth. Okay.
Okay, all right. So that was my one of two guesses. That's where I got. But here's what I want to say. Like, yes, in those small instances, that's true. But people don't even realize. Like, if you go look at like the HAVA data, HAVA is like this data collection off of Social Security Administration, where uh, you saw these spikes back in February of this year from Missouri, Texas, and a few other states of people uh, being rejected for not being legal citizens and being able to register to vote. You saw a spike in Missouri. You saw a spike in Texas. You saw a spike in a couple of these other states, and the excuse was made that no, they're cleaning their voter rolls. That's why they're seeing a spike. The Social Security Administration of requests that are being turned down by not having a match in the Social Security system. I actually argue that they were actually testing who they could register, and I think Missouri and Texas is in real trouble. Now, granted, Andrew Bailey is a great attorney general. I'm a big fan of Andrew Bailey. If you guys know, I covered Missouri v. Biden. Andrew Bailey is a great attorney general for Missouri. Missouri's in trouble. So is Texas. And your state, wherever it may be, whether it's Mississippi or Alabama, I don't know, whatever state that may be, because it's not Louisiana because they're only recently red, thanks to Jeff Landry and what they did down there. But it's happening all over the country. Like I'm in Arizona, so we are like ground zero. If not Texas, we are ground zero for the border here in Arizona, and we have a Democratic hide in the basement governor and Secretary of State, and a
I
completely
think.
hot.
Can I interrupt you just for a second,
Yeah,
Trash?
yeah, sure, sure.
I really am so pissed off of what happened in Maricopa County. You know, I followed it
Yeah,
very thoroughly,
I live
and
here.
I got to tell you, you know, Kerry Lake, all of the trials that she was in and the court cases. I mean, to me, she won,
We
but
proved it. We
yeah,
proved it.
yeah,
Yeah, we proved it.
but what happened? Nothing.
Oh, of course not.
They were all
And
bought and damn paid for, and
well, you know,
so
hey, Mike, you want to know why? So the title of the space is called "We Need to Talk GOP: America First, Establishment, Republican Sabotage." Do you want to know why she lost all of those? It had nothing to do with Katie Hobbs and the Democrat machine. It had everything to do with the same type of Georgia Republicans that happened in Fulton County and Gwinnett County and what goes on with Brad Raffensperger and Brian Kemp. The same thing happened out here. We had a guy by the name of Bill Gates. Bill Gates is not the Bill Gates of Microsoft. This is Bill Gates, who runs our elections commission here in Arizona, in Maricopa County. And he formed a pact with Democrats to try to defeat Trump in 2020. And they changed the election laws and changed the election rules and basically fortified Maricopa County to be able to not only have the cheat and the steal through the machines, but then also the follow up process through verifying through paper ballots that were submitted because they did not want America first. You guys you all really want to know the truth about what happened in Maricopa County? Here's the truth. There were so many people who supported McCain in Maricopa County in Arizona, McCain Republicans, and they all got butthurt because Donald Trump actually had the balls to call out what we have been calling out with John McCain for years, that he's a traitor, he was a piece of shit, and do not rest in peace. Go fuck yourself. And because we said that, the Republican establishment machine here in Maricopa County worked with Democrats to subvert the election process in Maricopa County and completely bungled and screwed it up. And people like Carrie Lake, who, I mean, well, I don't know what you say about Carrie Lake. Like, I've met her personally. I've been to some of her events here in Scottsdale. I like her personally, but she was a Democrat for a long time. Sure, absolutely. And then she woke up. I mean, she was in the media for 30 years. Like, of course she was a Democrat, but she woke up. And like, so like, say what you want about her, but like, she's been a champion. And I met her personally, and I talked to all these people. But this is the legacy. What's happening in Maricopa County is the same thing that happens in Utah. Is the same thing that's happening in Georgia. These are legacy of dynastic families, like the Romneys, as an example. Like the reason that we got rid of that dumbass bitch out of the RNC, Ronna McDaniel, because she's a Romney. Get out. Get out. You're not doing anything. Get out, Ronna McDaniel. She's a Romney. The reason that people like the guy Bill Gates here in Arizona conspired and created a pack to fight Donald Trump here in Arizona is because some people like Meghan McCain and the McCain family, who still had influence here in Arizona, were pissed off that we were saying shit about John McCain when he's an absolute traitor and piece of shit to our country. So what do? They conspired against Donald Trump and all of his supporters to subvert our elections and fuck up our election process. These are Republicans in this state that did this. It's not the Democrats that did this. This is a hard red state that was made purple because we offended the McCain family. That's all it is. Like, literally, Meghan McCain got a job on The View to propagandize people because they were that pissed off that we didn't like John McCain. That's all it was. And so now
well,
we're having to fight through it. That's it,
you know,
Mike.
to me, Trash, Maricopa County is like it's the true heartbeat of America. When I look at
It
Maricopa
is.
County,
It's
that's what
it's
I
it's
see.
well, it's the center of the establishment Republican anti-GOP, anti-America First movement. That's what it is, Mike.
It's
It's the
it's 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 incredible out there, and you know, I'm in the trucking industry. I I'm an agent in trucking, and I can tell you this right now: they are getting paid like shit. I mean, they're hauling this stuff for free. In most cases, it's costing them money to haul this freight. So it's just the things that I see going on right now, and the high prices in the grocery store, and all this stuff, and all these idiots that want to vote for Kamala, and this idiot out of Minnesota, as her VP. I just don't get it. You want more high prices? Great. That's great. But I disagree with it. you know, um, it's just stupid. I mean, everybody's having a hard time right now. I want to see it back. I want to see the Constitution, the real Constitution. I want it to go back. I love Trump. I've been with Trump since he came down the escalator. I'll always be with him. God bless him, and God bless the USA trash. I love this space, and I'll bow out now. And thank you so much for listening to me. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming up. And you're 100% right. Like it's not actually a battle for Harris or Waltz or like listen, like shout out to Tim Waltz for doing 24 years in the National Guard. Bro, thank you. That's all you had to do. But then you lied and made a challenge coin as a rank that you didn't have and then ran on it and then talked about PTSD of returning from a war zone. Like that's like it's okay that you served 24 years and you were like, yeah, I don't want to be deployed after being in this 24 years. I'll go run for Congress. I don't want to be deployed. Like, just say that. Like, that's okay. Like, that's actually reasonable to me when I don't like you. It's still reasonable to me that you're like, bro, I was in 24 years and all of a sudden I'm going to be deployed. Like, maybe it's not the best idea after being in 24 years to then go into a war zone. But just say that. Don't lie about it. Don't let everyone like astroturf you. Like, both are okay. Instead, they chose this. And from what I understand, but I'm a weird dude on the internet, Mike. I'm a weird guy because I'm one of the very few that's saying I'm not convinced that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz makes it to the DNC. And I'm also a guy that was informed that there were 12 phone calls made by the Harris campaign to find a vice president, and Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, and Roy Cooper, and Wes Moore of Maryland, and many of these other people actually turned it down because Kamala Harris is politically toxic. And like Tim Walz was the only guy that was willing to step up. I'm actually one of those guys. I probably will be proved to be wrong on that, and I'm willing to say that I'll probably be proved to be wrong on it.
I'm going to say that you're 150% right.
Yeah, but I mean, like, there's still a war going on in the background. So, like, they may win the war, and I don't want to make a hard prediction, like an Alex Jones type thing, saying, "Oh no, no, listen, Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz will not make it through the DNC. They won't make it. They won't make it to Chicago. Listen, I have a lot of receipts on this, and I'm telling you, no, like, I'm not that guy, but I'm also saying that, like, the evidence is clear that like Obama has not made his move. This is a Hillary Kamala move. And I'm not convinced that they make it through the DNC, even through the astroturfing, even through the margin of error talk that I was talking about with the polls. I'm not convinced that they make it. I'm not, I'm willing to be wrong on that prediction. It's okay if I'm wrong because they could win the war. But there's a war going on the Democrat side. I'm not convinced that they make it through. They probably will.
Well, I tell you what, Trash. I I'm really worried about the cheating. I mean, we've got so little time. We've got so little time to cut this off.
Well,
And
which means, Mike, we need to make it too big to rig, bro. Too
yeah, we
big to
do.
rig.
Yeah,
That's
we
it.
do.
And then
But
we'll fix it.
it takes the whole country. It takes everybody. I wish
Well, I'm
more
trying to
people would
rally
come
these
up to
people,
speak.
Mike.
I
I'm trying
really
to
wish
rally
more
them.
people would retweet the space and come up to speak, and let's get this room really riled up and really going and get the message out, because we've got to spread this message. We are running out of time.
We are. We are. And like, all right. So, all right. Let me get to the hands, Mike. Let me get to the hands. I'm with you. As you notice, the people that I interact with on a daily basis are actually
solution-minded oriented people, as you've noticed in this space and many other spaces in the past. I got my friend Gabs up on space. Let me tell you something about Gabs. She's
Trash.
out here.
Wait.
Sue,
Wait.
Sue, they motherfucking draws off. I got Gabs out here suing school boards. I got her out here going after the trans ideology. Like I want to talk to problem solvers, not problem bitchers, right? So problem solvers. That's what we,
Trash. Trash. You wait a minute. You killed me. I'm half dead with that Alex Jones.
well, listen. It's all the globalists. It's all the globalists. They're gonna take over. Okay. So they're gonna come in here. They're gonna come in here, and they already have a handle on our election system. Okay, it's the Iranians. It's the Iranians, and they are attacking us because they made the deal at at their meetings, their secret private meetings.
Oh, stop it. I'm going to piddle. I'm trying to drive, Trash. Oh my gosh. You need to stop it right now. Oh my gosh. That is so funny. I've never heard you do that before.
I've never done it. I've never actually done it before. Oh.
It threw me off, Jesus.
listen, listen. It's
I'm
all the
tickled.
globalists. It's all the globalists. It's actually controlled by the Iranians. Our voting systems are actually already compromised. There's nothing you can do. It's all coming to an end, and the world is on fire.
I'm so tickled right now. Oh, you need to stop this right now. Oh my gosh, that tickled me. Oh, that tickled me, and I really needed that laugh. But yeah, I hear what you're
Good to see you, Gabs. How are you doing? How's the
saying.
fight against this ideology in our schools? How are you doing?
You know what? Sometimes trash. Like sometimes I get. Sometimes I just have like a despair come over me because I get really, worried about the future. But then some weeks, like last week, was there was just a huge boon in the punch bowl for me. I was ready to quit. I was ready to quit because I'm having a hard time, I'm having a hard time finding investors. I'm having a hard time making I'm going to Washington D.C. at the end of this month. And then at the end of September, I'm going to protest in Orlando. And I just came from Atlanta and Orlando 2 weeks ago. Like I've been just going crazy with this. And so I'm just like, okay, what am I gonna do? How am I gonna keep going? All of this. And then last week we caught a break, and then this week it kept going. So I was like, okay, I'm going in the right direction. Like I have to just follow where the road takes me, and I'm going in the right direction. Guys, last week I saved 2 families. Like that's not no easy shit. Sometimes one of the families is I've been working with for 9 months. Working with them for 9 months. The other family, I've only been working her for 4 or 5 months, but still, I can't tell you a whole lot about the situation, but if you knew, I mean, if you knew the kind of breakthroughs that I'm having, this is stuff that data can't even quantify yet because there's nobody to take down the data. There's nobody to calculate the data. This is new stuff that only me and a few other people are doing, or who are really understand or know about. And so I'm doing everything I can to try to create some new protocols and things like that for Texas, and hopefully that standard will be used in other states. But it is
Are
it
you,
is an uphill
Gabs?
battle. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. Gabs, are you hooked up with Jennifer McWilliams and Alvin at Courage is a Habit? Are you hooked up with them?
Alvin Liu and Jennifer McWilliams. Yes.
Okay.
The thing is like, they put out information, but I have practical solutions for individual families. So it's kind of a different field, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
they go after the contractors. They go after the
right,
contractors and the Board of Education, like Corey DeAngelis, where you're kind of
right.
more of like attacking, like not attacking. I'm sorry. working with and coordinating with like actual families that are going through it. So
Yes. So
yeah.
yes, I mean, and like, so I mean, because nobody is doing that, right? You can have all the laws and rules and policies and protocols in place, but if you can't fix what's going on inside the four walls of these families' homes, and if they're still being activated against by rogue actors, then they have no recourse, they have no hope, and they don't know where to go, and they don't know who to turn to. I mean, and I was in that position, you know, um,
Well,
when
yeah, that's why you spoke in
yeah.
front of Congress. That's why you've been suing they draws off. That's why you've been working with attorney generals, right? Like,
Yeah, I've never spoken in front of Congress. If you know somebody, please.
oh, I got
But
you.
yeah, I've never spoken in front of Congress, but my colleagues have. I mean, Aaron Friday. There are some other, more important people than me that have spoken in front of Congress. But you know, um, this is like this is the kind of thing that most people don't think about, most people don't really care about, because it doesn't affect them, and they think, and people think, well, individuals should, have the fortitude to go and get whatever help that's necessary. But the problem is that there's no help available, and it's not easy to find, so I'm trying to make it more accessible for people to find the help that they need, so that they can pull their children out of this nightmare, and so that they can repair their families. I mean, and if you see my tweets, of course, you see, what a success that my program has been on my own daughter, because I don't tell anybody anything different than what I already did. Everything I tell people, everything I coach people on, is stuff that I did myself.
I was gonna say, like everything you do was based on your own personal experience, and then you tried to replicate or duplicate it with a bunch of people. So, like anybody listening
Yes.
right now, there's 199 people in here. There's 200 people in here. Go follow Gabs. Follow her. If you can support, please, because she's actually trying to churn out like actual, real, tangible results from people. So I got you.
Oh
I'm also.
yeah. I mean, there. I mean, like so the one of our biggest successes is the Kolstad family. The Kolstad family in Montana, they lost their daughter, even though Montana is a red state and gender affirming care is banned for children. The state still took her daughter, still took the Kolstad's daughter, and trafficked her to Wyoming, and then
Yeah, we're seeing that. That
yeah.
story's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, we were able to help the Kolstads. Now the Kolstads have flipped the script, had all of their charges dismissed, and they are now suing the state of Montana. And they'll probably win that lawsuit. So I mean, that those were people who were at the end of their rope. They still lost their daughter, but they're in talks with their daughter, and she may come back. And I will also be able to help them, so that when she does come back, they have a pathway to unifying their family. It's I mean, it's a lot, and it is a complicated situation that there is no manual for. And so, the things that I do, hopefully will create. I'm hoping to get some investors to create a pathway for states to follow, and some protocols for states to follow, so that we don't have this problem all the time. But listen, you do that Alex Jones thing one more again, because that was funny, and I almost piddled. I That was good. I never heard you do that before, Trash. That was so hilarious.
I've never done it on the internet. I've never done it on the internet. And like, listen, folks, the globalists will take over, cut your children's dick off, and they will be happy to do it.
Oh fuck, my voice is gone. I can't do the Alex Jones voice all the time. All right, well I've done it for the first time, and now I can't do it all the time because my throat is like, yeah, nah, bro, we're not doing that. But no, like Gabs, like, everybody go follow Gabrielle here, man. Gabs has been in the fight for a long time,
and she got in a fight for her own child, not for your child, for her own. But she's fighting for your child now. Like, come on, guys. Like, this space has been going on now for 2.5 hours, and we've talked about election integrity. We've talked about how useless our politicians are unless we turn the screws. And then you've heard from people that are actually doing the work. And these people that are going to the Bohemian Grove and they're wearing these cloaks and they're making all these decisions. Go out here and support Gabby. Man, my voice that fucks me up. I can't even finish it.
How does he do that? How does he do it?
I don't know,
Like,
but like it's gone. Now, Gabs, I appreciate you. And like, listen, like, guys, we're talking about like real tangible results. We're not talking about like how can I go out and virtue signal on social media. We are hearing from problem solvers. So please go support these people. That Alex Jones impression, Gabs, it destroys my voice. Like it destroys it.
look, don't do it. Because I don't you have to have been an alcoholic for a good long while to have that kind of rasp in your voice, I think.
I'm not an alcoholic.
I know. That's why you're choking right now. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, you do. That hurt me. Oh man.
I can give you a good one. I can give you a good one.
All right, Mike. And I'm gonna go to the hands.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
I'm feeling a small airport in the middle of Arkansas speaking right now. Apparently, he did not have sexual relations with that woman. Man. All right. Let me get to the hands. I want to play something for you guys. That is one of my favorites. I think it's on my profile, although, I can't count on X to actually give me. Anyway, whole grain. Go ahead.
Hey, so this is kind of a joint question for you and Jersey Girl. What do you do to get into the poll watching stuff? Because I looked that up and it says just like contact your local party. I just didn't know if you had any more like information on that. And it was a question I kind of had for Mike, but he cut out,
Yeah, no,
obviously.
like Mike won't know that. He Mike won't know that. Not that he wouldn't know that. He might know it, but I'm saying that like that's not in his purview of what he's been talking about. So you have to. We have a link where you can actually get directly involved. I need to get Millie. Fuck, she's in Ohio. It's midnight. So tomorrow I'll put it out. We have a link where you can actually sign up and then get part of poll watching operations immediately. Um, so we'll put that out.
Okay,
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
And
Uh,
the other thing I wanted to say is like in 2022, it wasn't just Arizona. It was like Nevada and like basically the election, the midterms got spiked by McConnell with the horse trades that they did with like what was it like Ted Budd and stuff like that. They gave money to like candidates that didn't need it and took away money from candidates that did.
yeah, like Lisa Murkowski in Alaska in a non-contested two Republican race in Alaska. So so Mitch McConnell was in charge of the Senate fund for Republican contributions. Mitch McConnell was in charge of it because he was the Speaker of the Senate. He was the minority leader at one point, majority leader. So they funded a bunch of non-America First candidates, and the reason that Mitch McConnell funded like Lisa Murkowski's race in Alaska was because he wanted the votes to remain as minority leader as they lost the Senate majority in that election. So he funded Lisa Murkowski and many other people's candidacies to maintain his power inside the Senate. And so what we were talking, it's actually a good point because I was going to bring this up when we were talking about it earlier was that like the Mitch McConnells of the world who lauds over like a $15 million type fund that would fund Senate candidates over time, he sunk $9 million into Lisa Murkowski's race in Alaska that was against another Republican. And he did that so he could maintain the votes, enough votes needed to remain minority leader in the Senate. Like that's Mitch McConnell, and
Yeah,
that's
it's
yeah.
oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was gonna say it's just being controlled opposition is what it is. It's not winning. It's just like
Correct. Correct.
placating to people. It's like never solving the problem, so you can always say you're gonna try and solve the problem.
Yeah, it's like putting the Second Amendment and abortion on your election ticket, right? So like prior to Roe v. Wade finally being struck down in the Supreme Court, you could always, you know, campaign and platform ideas like, "We're hell yeah, we're going to take your guns. Hell yeah, we're going to preserve women's health and preserve abortion rights." These are like stupid easy topics to campaign on, whether you're on the left or the right. And so you can always campaign on it, never actually provide a solution to these problems. And you can always campaign on it and receive campaign dollars. And it makes it easy for you to campaign on, we're going to protect your Second Amendment rights. We're going to take your Second Amendment rights. We're going to protect the right to life. We are pro-life people. Hey, evangelicals, we want to protect life. Come vote for us. Come donate to us. We're going to take. We're going to give women's rights back to the people. We are going to go on this, and like it's a never-ending cycle of bullshit promises that you can ever make on a campaign trail without actually ever having to stand up for anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what they wanted. And that's what Mitch McConnell represented. And so he said, okay, I know we are going to lose the majority in the Senate in 2022. Therefore, I want to prop up and fund campaign candidates that will come in and vote for me to be a minority leader when we lose and not campaign on any issues, but put me in the power position of the Senate purse strings of the fund that would fund a lot of Senate candidate races. And we are going to agree to lose. As long as you agree to vote me in, I'll agree to fund your campaign to the tune of $9 million to make sure that you come in and vote for me as a minority leader that we agree to lose. That's what
Yeah.
Republicans have been. That's what they're
Well,
doing.
well, and that's why I'm saying I kind of brought up the point about like there's been so much progress in the last like 8 years of finally getting some representation, you know, in like the RNC and getting like Romney McDaniel out of there and, you know, Laura Trump in there. And then the other thing that blows my mind is like, how did McConnell and Rand Paul come out of the same state? Like that just blows my mind. That
Well, I'll tell
like,
you. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. So I have some friends that are more on the activist level, and they did some work on We Build the Wall, and they did a lot of work in Kentucky. But one of the pieces of work that they did was to try to oust Mitch McConnell. And Mitch McConnell rolled up in a limo. He rolled up in a limo. He lowered his fucking window like it was a fucking movie, and he said, "I have contacts within the state that will make your life very difficult. Matter of fact, I actually have contacts in the state which will essentially end your life if you don't quit what your activities are." And it forced them out of the state of Kentucky to go work in other states for the We Build the Wall campaign because of McConnell's mafia type style tactics in Kentucky. And he tried to do that with Rand Paul. It didn't work, but he tried to do it. And this was the beginning of the end of McConnell. It's like forget his mental acuity. Like we all know, he froze up. That's why we call him Glitch McConnell because he like glitches. He doesn't know what he's doing.
yeah,
But he actually has like a mafia style control over politics in Kentucky that continue to elect him because he intimidates other people from entering into the fray. He actually pushed out everybody from the Tea Party in Kentucky. But mind you, Kentucky is based. It's super Republican. It's on the border of libertarian, which is why Rand Paul exists, which is why like a lot of like the moonshiners had linked up with a bunch of people in Kentucky. Like these are like libertarian, like based as fuck Americans that exist in Kentucky. But Mitch McConnell has a mafia style tactic and approach to anybody challenging him in Kentucky. And I'm telling you, for every reason that you should probably believe him, he could probably have you killed and disappeared in the Appalachians. Like, that's actually true.
That's
And
insane.
what's true? This actually happened. And Mitch McConnell, glitch McConnell, his power is waning. And he would rather maintain his power as a minority leader than actually fund campaigns to win a majority in a Senate race in 2022. That's Mitch McConnell. That's who he is. And
He's got to go.
he's
Yeah.
gonna go. He's done. Glitch McConnell is fucking done. Like, all right, you know what? You know what? You guys got me. I've had a couple drinks of whiskey. I'm just gonna lay it all out. Josh McCoon in Georgia needs to go. That asshole is working against America first. You want to keep going? Susie Wiles needs to go. Chris LaCivita needs to go. All of these people need to go. Tim Scott is running a shadow campaign within the Trump campaign to suppress America First Trump supporting people. And Tim Scott, because he's so butthurt that he was not selected for vice president because they made a deal in San Francisco with David Sachs, all those people in that campaign need to go. Do I need to keep naming names? You know what? I'll fucking keep naming names. Let's keep going. So Mitch McConnell, Glitch McConnell, in Kentucky politics, he needs to go. He almost got Andy Bashir to join the vice president ticket with Kamala Harris. The reason that Andy Bashir did not make it out of Kentucky as a governor, a blue governor out of Kentucky, was because we fucking called him out and we stopped it. But I'm telling you right now, Brad Raffensperger has funding his fucking drug addict loser son to the tune of almost $1 million and building an $850,000 fucking house in Georgia, of which he's never had a fucking job, of which he's laundering money through the CCP that he's getting paid as a registered Republican in the state of Georgia, and is fighting us on voter integrity and fighting against voter rolls and cleaning up the voter rolls. Brad Raffensperger, you're compromised. I know you are, because I see what your son Corey fucking Raffensperger is building. A loser, drug addict, know nothing kid as part of your system is building an $850,000 house with $150,000 in landscaping. All right, let's keep going. Brian Kemp, you saw the evidence of election interference in 2020, and you suppressed it because it looked bad for you because of what came out of Fulton County. Brian Kemp, Brad Raffensperger, Cody Raffensperger. What came out of that election was that it would make you look bad, but you hated Trump at the end of the day because your system of just going along to get along and getting paid to do so was interrupted because America First MAGA people decided to ask some fucking questions. Hey, by the way, Mitch McConnell, you run your mafia style politics in Kentucky. We know about how you run it. We know how you tried to shut down America First in 2016. We know what you did to the Tea Party movement and Lois Lerner inside the IRS. I know what you did. I know who you are. And by the way, Josh McCoon and all of your Tim Scott, South Carolinian fucking idiots like Sarah Jane Walker and all these fucking stupid people that are running within Chris LaCivita's and inside Susie Wiles' campaign, who defected from the Ron DeSantis campaign, who got Ron DeSantis elected on Trump's fucking blessing in 2018. And then in 2024, you jumped ship after the primaries and tried to run Donald Trump's fucking campaign. I know what you're doing. And all these people who are actually trying to tank America First and actually trying to move us to another direction because you're being paid by the Bush dynasty, the Romney dynasty, all these RINO fake idiot faggots like Lindsey Graham, Lady G out of South Carolina. I know what you're doing. I know who you are. Kellyanne Conway, who decided that she wanted to make sure that we had funding for the Ukraine. Yeah, don't ask me. I said this, but don't ask me. Ask Dan Bongino, who actually also knows what the fuck he's talking about. Have a listen to this.
.com/Bongino. All right, fellas, let's go. They don't know what I'm going to do here. Well, maybe they do because I sent them the article a few minutes ago. Get your friends, text your friends right now, Bongino Army. Tell them they need to tune in. They don't have to watch the whole show if they got to watch this right now. we have two big problems right now in this election. It's not the VP selection. It's not Trump's messaging. That's all bullshit. It's none of that stuff. Okay. Forget that. Throw that in the garbage. We heard that in 2016, and he went on to win pretty handily, by the way, in the Electoral College. Okay. We have two things going on. There's a lot of internal sabotage going on right now.
There's a lot of internal sabotage going on right now. I've demonstrated it. I've brought experts onto the stage. We've talked about it. But you know what? Fuck you. I'm actually going to fucking name your names. Here we go.
That I honestly did not want to highlight because I like to stay focused on the Democrats and I was hoping it would go away. It's not. And now we're going to out it today. And second, the media is now gone. I mean, a full blown Pravda. I mean, beyond Pravda. They'll actually make Pravda look like honest brokers. Let's address the sabotage first. So this morning, I'm sitting here, I'm putting the show together, and it's late. This is probably the latest cut I ever said over to my team. Right before I walked upstairs, and I said, guys, you got to put this in the show. I see this Daily Mail article, August 14, 2022. I believe that's today, right? Inside Trump's meltdown. The ex-president is lighting up his staff because he's pissed about picking J.D. Vance. As insiders feel he's going to fire two extremely talented campaign.
To be clear, fuck you. Like, that's a lie. Like, that's not true. I know what's going on. And JD Vance is not the problem. Fuck these people. I'm done. I'm so done with these people. But here we go.
Gurus. Martha Williams, Daily Mail.
Yeah. So the headline from Daily Mail is Inside Trump's Meltdown, quote unquote. Ex-president is lighting up his staff because he's pissed about picking JD Vance. It's a lie. That's not true. That's actually not true at all. And I'll actually tell you how the deal was made for JD Vance. I'll say it again. But ex-president is lighting up his staff because he's pissed about picking JD Vance. As insiders fear he's going to fire two extremely talented, quote unquote, campaign gurus, Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. These same fucking assholes. All right, here we go.
Again, I was going to let this go, not because I didn't want to put it out there or expose it, but because I want to stay focused on winning. And I felt like it was a distraction. And all I care about is cutesy time being over and winning. I care about ruthless political tactics. That's all I care about. However, this is getting tiresome. Folks in the chat, any idea what's going on with this article?
Any idea, guys? Do you guys know what this is?
You know, Kellyanne Conway. Oh, yeah. I'm hearing some things from some people.
I'm hearing some things and from some people too. And I'm telling you, Kellyanne Conway represents the Ukraine wing of this political establishment attack. These same people who would see your tax dollars funding a meat grinder in Ukraine. All right, here we go.
For some people for a while now that she's probably not that happy about JD Vance being picked. I'm telling you, I talk to people a lot who know a lot of things. This story, put that headline up again. It's bullshit. And ladies and gentlemen, it's no secret I like JD Vance. Put that, I'm telling you this with absolute objectivity. I have not spoken to JD Vance about this, but I have spoken to other people. This story about President Trump being upset about picking JD Vance is bullshit.
It's bullshit. I know this for a fact. I'm telling you. I put out my tweet and this space without even listening to Dan Bongino's podcast from today because I knew what the fuck was going on. These fucking people on our side, these motherfuckers on our side.
It is absolute bullshit. He killed it on this weekend show. Of course, there was going to be an oppo drop after JD Vance was picked. If they picked Rubio, Bergram, or Tim Scott or anyone else, there was going to be an oppo drop. JD Vance smooth sailed right through that, crushed it on the weekend shows, and is now lighting up the internet with viral clips. This story's BS. I suspect strongly this was a leak from people who wanted another candidate for vice president. I'm hearing from some friends of mine that this is the Kellyanne Conway camp. Now, if you look at Kellyanne Conway and where some of the money in that sphere is coming from, there is an interest in Ukrainian politics. And some of the other vice presidential candidates, are you guys picking up what I'm putting down? Some of the other candidates were very interested in a more muscular posture in Ukraine, where there was a lot of money to be made for a lot of people. J.D. Vance is interested in a more cautious approach to Ukraine. So the money train may have dried up a little bit. So a lot of people are really upset. So instead of shutting the up, I'm trying to get the language under control. Instead of just shutting up and trying to win now with this great ticket, there are people out there sabotaging the ticket right now because it looks like their influence waned. Because let's just say, is everybody picking up what I'm putting down? That they told other people, don't you worry, I'm going to get this guy picked as VP, and don't you sweat that Ukraine thing.
Let me be clear about something. I have seen internal comms. I've seen internal comms. I've seen it where you had the Tim Scott wing of people. I've seen where people were like actually like trying to float JD Vance as a thing prior to a selection of a vice president. I watched the whole thing go down. These same fucking idiots, these same idiots like the Mitch McConnell mafia of Kentucky, the same fucking idiots who have basically tried to astroturf their own people for their own influence, for their own money grab. As Mike was talking about, like the greatest money grab in the last 20 years happened in Ukraine once we took over during the Euromaidan protests in 2014 in Ukraine. These same people who make money if this goes forward are the same people who are trying to fake leak and fake put out stories that holy fuck. All right, here we go. I'm gonna keep going, but like, come on, man. Come on, guys. Wake the fuck up. Shake loose. Like, do something. Like,
Hey,
fucking.
Trash. Hey,
Yeah.
Trash. Listen to this. My favorite day was when JD Vance walked over to Air Force Two and said he just wanted to take a look at his plane.
That was so good. It
Oh,
was
I
so
loved it.
good.
I loved it. And
No,
he
it was so
walked over.
good.
He walked over to the press gaggle and he says, "I want to come over here and talk to you because I know you guys are so lonely because they
Because I
won't
know
talk to
that
you."
Kamala is not talking to you. Because I know
Yeah,
Kamala is not talking to you.
exactly,
All
brother.
right, all
You're
right.
right
But
on.
yeah, but before we get there, let me bring it back because like these quote unquote strategic leaks, these leaks of people who put out stories saying that like the Trump campaign is in disarray and all these things. It's not. But the people that are leaking it have a vested interest in the pipeline of corruption in Ukraine and make a lot of money from it. Here we go. Wait.
Everybody over there picking up what am I being? Producer Jim, you text me. You get where I'm going with this? You thought I was going to be quiet about this, didn't you? You thought like, oh, he'll just let it go. Listen to me. The Bongino army is the most powerful force right now in conservative politics. Just a fact. Thanks to you, not to me. I'm only one guy. There's nothing powerful about me. I need a knee replacement. My shoulders don't work. I can barely bench press the 150 pounds anymore. It's falling apart. I'm a collapsing, rotting meat bucket right now. But my brain still works okay. And I am a foot soldier in an army full of people that has grown very powerful. We are the biggest conservative live streamer in the world. It's not even a close second anymore. You don't have to like it. I don't really give a shit. But me and my peeps, we're not going to take this lying down. So I'm going to say to Kellyanne and others, it's time to pipe down. You've been warned. I've had about enough. J.D. Vance was a great pick. J.D. Vance has upsides and downsides like any other pick, but he's fantastic. He's been doing great, and the leaks got to stop. You know that story's bullshit. The president, they love JD Vance. You're making this up. These are leaks designed to sabotage the campaign because there's a whole lot of money to be made by making sure you get people interested in funding your endeavors in that position. Really sorry to have to bring this up, folks. We should be focused on winning. But according to this article I saw this morning, which that's it, rope end of it, I'm done. And I know you're watching, Kellyanne and others. I'm not in this for friends. You want a friend? Go get a motherfucking dog, okay? I'm not anybody's friend. You know who's my friend? Winning. That's who's my friend. And my fellow foot soldiers in this little army we have of now 126,000 people 10 minutes in. Cut the bullshit, or it's going to continue. Because there's a lot more I know I haven't thrown out there yet. I'm better at this than you are, I promise. A lot better. That's why I have a bigger audience. That's why my show is probably 100,000 times the size yours. I mean that literally, too. You ever see the Roger Scare video about effing around and finding out? Been warned, okay? I've had enough. JD's been very nice about this, and he's trying not to stir the pot. I'm not nice. You want nice? Again, go get a cat named Fiddlesticks or something. I'm not the nice guy. I really don't give a shit about being nice. I don't need any more friends. I got enough friends.
100%. So here's where I'm going to go. I'm going to talk about JD Vance. I'm going to talk about David Sachs and his fundraiser in San Francisco. And I'm going to pull up David Sachs talking to Benny Johnson, right? So I'm actually going to talk about it. Because I would like to talk to you guys about why JD Vance is even the vice president to begin with. And how Silicon Valley bros like David Sachs and Thomas Palapatia and many other people, even Mark Zuckerberg came out and said, like, that was the most badass thing that I've ever seen. Why? Why were they talking about that? Well, here we go.
And resetting our trade relationships. I mean, those were the three big ones. And then I think the fourth one, which was kind of a meta issue, was draining the swamp, right? Because without draining the swamp, you're not going to be able to get anything else done. And those issues were so powerful that it swept this total outsider from, into the presidency, into the White House. And I think that if Washington, if the establishment had simply allowed him to implement the will of the American people with respect to those issues, we'd be in a completely different place as a country. Yes. What was so horrible about those issues that the Washington elite couldn't just take the note from the American people, Like you take a note. Okay, we're going to build a border wall. What's so horrible about that? We have to have a border. We're going to end these crazy forever wars. What good have they brought us, right? Yeah. $8 trillion we spent on the forever wars in the Middle East. 1 million direct deaths, 5 million indirect deaths. That's globally. We we destabilized the whole Middle East. Actually empowered our enemies there, and of course we have all the wounded warriors and deaths as well in our own country. It's crazy. Why couldn't they get on board with that? It's and then the trade relationships. I think we've had more progress there in resetting our relationship with China, but these ideas just weren't crazy. They weren't what the elite made them out to be, like somehow they're fascism or something like that. These are common sense ideas that most Americans agree with. And again, if they had just said, okay, we're going to co-opt Trump, we're going to, again, take the note, realize that the American people want to send us a message, we'd be in a completely different place as a country. Not only would we be better off as a result of those issues, we wouldn't have the extreme divisiveness and hatred that we have now. But this divisiveness was caused by the refusal of the establishment to listen to the American people. And so here we are, we're 8 years later, and we're still trying to get those issues addressed. We're still trying to seal the border. We're still trying to get out of these ridiculous forever wars. And Ukraine is just the latest one. It is a forever war. It's all of our money. At least our soldiers aren't fighting and dying, but we found a proxy to do that for us. But it's still, we're wasting hundreds of billions of dollars in what will be a new $1 trillion forever war if we don't pull the plug on it at some point. And of course, we're still trying to reset our relationship with China. So it's like the country has just been held up from making progress on these things because of this extreme and insane resistance that came out of Washington. Like, recall, what did they do during the Trump presidency? They invented this insane narrative that he was a Russian agent, that he was somehow an agent of Putin, and they basically roiled the country's politics for years. I mean, literally for 3 years with this baseless accusation that came out of a phony piece of opposition research, the Steele dossier that the Hillary campaign cooked up and fraudulently mislabeled as legal expense. Okay. And on the basis of that, they lied to the FISA court. They started a special counsel investigation for 2 years, which found nothing. And but it roiled the whole country. And then, as soon as Biden got he in my view is he provoked this war in Ukraine, easily avoidable war. He provoked it. I can go into as much detail as you want on that. And then reopened the border, repealed all of Trump's executive orders on the border. The unfinished parts of the wall where the piece of wall were literally laying on the ground, they sold off as scrap metal for 2 cents on the dollar when they could have just put it up and finished the wall that everyone wanted. And instead, they ripped it down, created huge holes, let millions and millions of migrants come through. And then when Homeland Security has these migrant crossings or whatever, what do? They bust the people all over the country instead of stopping them. It's literally insane. But this is where we are as a country, and I think this is why Donald Trump is now leading the polls to come back into the White House and complete the agenda that he started.
You're doing the unthinkable, David. You're a successful man. You live in San Francisco, a very nice neighborhood, and you're having fundraisers for Donald Trump that raise $10, $20 million. And you're inviting other people inside of that industry to come, and they give money to Donald Trump. And you were the first guy through the wall. You were new fashion, because now it's become almost totally and completely acceptable in society, in polite society or high society, to be a Trump voter. Yeah. That's something that is, I would have never guessed. Never in my living through the last 5 years, I would have never guessed this. But now it is because of, and the reason I call you Sith Lord is it's because in part to some of the work that you've done, right? Like, you shattered that. No, Trump can come into Silicon Valley, he can come into the heart of San Francisco and do a fundraiser, and he can make tens of millions of dollars. You're shattering these paradigms, and you just described paradigm after paradigm that used to be mantles of the left that they would cling to. We want peace, we want security at home. We want to help poor people. Now you're saying, and I can't believe I can say this, you're making it acceptable to wear a MAGA hat in downtown San Francisco. How is it possible? How'd you do it, David?
Well, let's give credit to some other folks too. Peter Thiel and Palmer Luckey also, that they supported Trump in 2016. So they really, I think, broke this. And they took a lot of slings and arrows for doing that. The thing that put me over the top in this election cycle. So I agree with Trump on the issues we talked about. But the thing that really offended me so much that I was like, I just have to get involved, is all the lawfare. The idea that a president would prosecute his chief rival and seek to put him in jail, seek to bankrupt him, go after his kids. I mean, it's beyond the pale. And if you allow that to get normalized, it doesn't stop there. We've already seen with my friend Elon Musk that he's now the target of a number of government investigations that seem completely ridiculous. At SpaceX being investigated for not hiring enough, basically illegal aliens.
Yeah.
In a national security company makes no sense. It being investigated at Tesla for supposedly building a glass house, insane. I mean, they keep coming with more and more preposterous. It's almost like trying to prosecute someone for an expired bookkeeping misdemeanor or something like that. They are weaponizing the justice system to go after their political opponents. And if you allow them to get away with that, it doesn't stop there. They'll just keep doing it with more and more political enemies. So to me, that was something that really offended me, and I was like, I really gotta, do what I can to help President Trump. And then JD Vance asked me as well. He's like, "Look, do you think we could get do a Trump fundraiser in San Francisco?"
Listen to this. This is very important. Listen to this.
And I was like, well, how much do you need to raise? You know, because it is a pretty liberal place. Yeah. And I think the original goal was 5 million. It's like, okay, I think I can do that. You know, between and so I called Chamath, who's co-host of mine on the All In Pod, said, do you want to do this with me? And to his great credit, he said yes, because he had only given to Democrats in the past, and he's more of, I'd say, like a center left guy. So for him to come on board was, he took a big risk too. And then from there, the dominoes started to slowly fall. And then we got more and more people accepting. And it was like, okay, wait, I think we can raise 8 million. And then I heard that in New York, like the bigwig finance guys had raised 10 at their dinner. So I was like, well, okay, you think we could like do 10? And then we ended up doing 12, and it ended up being 13 because people gave more at the dinner. So we ended up raising 13 million bucks in one dinner, which was a huge thing. And the timing was really good because it was the first event that Trump did after the convictions in that ridiculous sham trial. Yeah. And I think that he had just spent 6 weeks in a courtroom. Imagine, like, it was with a gag order, right? This is like a form of like house arrest or something, where like he's in the middle of a campaign and he's being forced to spend all of his days in this courtroom hearing this nonsense, and he can't talk about it. I mean, in any event, and then he gets the conviction, and the press is trying to brand him as a convicted felon, which was the whole point. The whole point of that sham trial was to brand him with that, so that that has something to run on, right? Because they got no issues to run on that the American people side with them over Trump. And so our event was the first one that he did. And I think that, the thing that was really amazing is that the San Francisco media had been teeing up protesters all week, but when Trump came, his motorcade, went by, and there were hundreds of demonstrators on the street, but they were all pro-Trump. We saw the videos. All of them. They were all pro-Trump. There was like a handful of people who were anti. There was like one little lady holding up like a. Dave, this is why I call you a Sith Lord, because you're doing the impossible. You're doing things that are unnatural. Some would consider unnatural, which would be to have a MAGA rally in downtown San Francisco, which you did, and there's video proof of it. Yeah, no, I know. Well, I mean, but I'd like to take credit for the demonstrators, but they did that on their own. Like hundreds of people came out on their own, and they were cheering for Trump along the streets, so that when he got to our house, he was like amazed, It's like, he said, am I in the right city? That was one of the first things he said to me. So I think I think the whole lawfare thing, like, totally, there's a huge backlash to it. And I think lots of other people felt the same way I did about it. Like, this is ridiculous. This is un-American. This is banana republic stuff. You do not prosecute your political enemies. And so that was the beginning. And I feel like since then, we've been on this like remarkable upswing. You posted today on X all of the Silicon Valley funders, some names on there, never in my wildest dreams. I know none of the people personally. I know most of them by name, though, based on the industry that we're in. Yeah. I'm shocked. It was at least 20 names long. Yeah. And it was some of the wealthiest and most successful pioneers and entrepreneurs of Silicon Valley are now supporting Trump. Yeah. Yeah. How? Well, that's a great question. I mean, so the big ones that announced yesterday were Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz, a huge venture capital firm in Silicon Valley, and they're titans of the tech industry. I had some sense of where their politics were, but I honestly didn't expect them to come out in such a forceful way.
It's a long conversation, but I would encourage anyone to go and listen.
This is with Benny Johnson.
Yeah, it was Benny, man. It was
What
Benny.
Did he post it on like YouTube or something?
It's on YouTube. If you go to his accounts, it's like, I know a lot of the people that work for Benny. I love those people. I'm not talking about ALX. ALX and I are fine, but like, yeah, it's on his YouTube. Go watch it.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's like 40 minutes. It's like, go watch it.
That's not bad though. It's not like Joe Rogan 4 hours or something,
No, but go watch it.
Yeah.
Like, David Sachs is not like just like some random guy on the internet, like, actually, like, giving his 2 cents. And then, like, he also has the All In podcast.
Like, no, like that's actually what happened.
Yeah. No, I mean he's like a solid dude from the stuff that I've seen, you know.
Yeah, he seems to be solid to me too. Man, like, I don't have a problem with him.
Yeah. Kind of, innovator and, forward thinking, all of that, freedom minded, everything,
Yeah, but like wild shit. Like,
Yeah. No, exactly.
it's fucking wild, man. All right, David, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hi, Trash. Thanks for having this space again tonight. And I unfortunately missed about the first half because I was playing some hockey, late night hockey tonight. But
Yeah, let's
anyway,
go. Let's go.
I I'm an old coach, so I kind of look at things, and I wanted to, as we have 80 some odd days left of the election here, and I kind of just game plan all the time. And if I'm game planning out this election, I use my simple rules that I've been using for about 30 years. And the first thing is I go into every game or every season, I always assume that my opponent is bigger, stronger, faster, smarter, and more skilled than our team. And the only thing our team then can do is work hard. And what worries me when I game plan this election out is, we don't, they're capable of so much. I mean, what went on in 2020 with COVID and BLM and all of these misdirections that basically just gave them the way to steal the election. That and if we look at them and we think, hey, they're smarter than we are, what do they have up their sleeve this time? And this is why I'm kind of with you on the. I don't, I think the big misdirection right now might actually be Kamala and Waltz, and then they just boom flip them next week, and then we start all over again. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I I'm not convinced that they make it through the DNC. Like, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced at all. And so like I don't like. I think a lot of people are like invested into like the Tim Waltz, Kamala Harris ticket. I'm not convinced they make it through it.
Right, and we're
I don't
wasting
know,
a lot of
man.
time on it.
Yeah, like I don't know, man. Like maybe I'm wrong. I'm probably wrong, right? But
Yeah,
like also like I'm not convinced.
yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't
He
know.
does
Yeah,
have a
it's as
very good
well. Anyway,
point.
as you look at it, and they ran us around last time. I mean, we were involved watching riots. We were involved with trying to fight against the COVID Nazis, as I like to call them, and we lost sight of what the end game was, and that was winning the election. And I'm seeing some of that again here in the last 3 weeks.
Look, I don't know. Like I don't know what local voters will do in these states, but like, are you guys really convinced? Like, I'm not convinced. Like, are you guys convinced in those states? So, I
I'm
don't know.
not convinced.
No,
And
like, I'm not. I don't know. Sound like, go
all right,
ahead.
Yeah, hey Trash, how you doing, man? Yeah, I love that exchange that you played there. But my biggest concern is that the Democrats, even if Trump wins, if they hold the Senate, it's just going to be blocking and tackling, right? And so the Senate is absolutely critical. And so I'm looking at some of these Senate races and I'm a little bit concerned, but then again, I'm not in those battleground states, so I would love to hear from people in Nevada as how they think. Can Jackie Rosenthal, people in Montana, is Tester on the ropes? Do we have a shot against Slotkin in Michigan and that type of thing? And I dug into Nevada a little bit, Trash. And, if you go back to 2016 and you look at the voter requirements and the voter laws that were on the books, versus to where we're at today, Nevada has universal mail-out ballots. They have ballot drop boxes all over the place again. They have postmarks on or before election day, and then you have the election board has until 4 days after the election day to receive those ballots postmarked. They have an additional 2 days beyond that to cure any ballots. So, I mean, the ballot curing could be for any ballots received up until, the 4 days after election day. So they have another 2 days to monkey around. So it's 6 days after election day that we might not know the results of the full results of what happened in Nevada. So here we go again, right? And I'm not sure what has transpired as far as tightening the chain of custody of ballots in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Minnesota and Virginia, New Jersey, North Carolina, all the key battleground states. And so, would love to hear from people, where do we stand for the Senate races? And then for those people in those specific states, how do you feel about chain of custody? Has it gotten tighter or is it looser than it was, the last time that they stole the election? And I'll land the plane
Hey,
there.
I can add here in Ohio. I think we're going to probably flip Sherrod Brown out with Bernie Moreno, and our elections have been pretty lock solid red, and state at the state level they've done a great job cleaning voter rolls and things like here. So I think we have a very good chance of getting Sherrod Brown out and electing Bernie Moreno.
I'd like to elect Moreno. And I'd like to elect Ramaswamy when he enters the race in Ohio. That's my home state. That's where I grew up.
Yeah,
All right.
all we need is two, So again, it's about chain of custody, ballot harvesting, and all that trash. And where do we stand in some of these key Senate races?
I don't know. I don't know.
If
Did I sound fresh? Oh man.
I was gonna say, who do you guys think is gonna be Senate Majority Leader?
Well, not Mitch.
You,
Probably like Mike Lee.
yeah,
Maybe, yeah, like Mike Lee, probably.
dude,
Ron.
I wish it was Rand Paul.
Mm, I love Rand Paul, but I don't think he's going to get there. All right.
Yeah,
Let me get to Victorious, and I'm going to play this 3 minute 27 clip from Dave Smith about Pocahontas, and then I'm going to end the space. So, Victoria, go ahead.
Hi. This is the first time I've ever done this, so but I've been listening, and I just wanted to say that um, I agree with uh, you talking about Brad Raffensperger, whatever his name is. I cannot stand that man, and you can rest assured I'm going to vote against him when I go to vote this time. And I am from Georgia, so one of the battleground states. And I read a tweet earlier um, that said that Trump was fixing to fire two of his campaign staff, and it was supposedly come from Andrew Scaramucci.
Dude, that guy's a fucking retard. Like, I'm not playing this game. All right, I'm ending the space on this. So we got it. Donald Trump doesn't need to do that shit. He just bullies people. He doesn't need. Do you remember what he would do to these guys? This is why they're so scared, because he would fuck them up. Do you remember what he did to Elizabeth Warren? He took that bitch's soul. She used to be a respected senator. And then Donald Trump just called her Pocahontas every day for like 4 years. And you can never look at her the same. You could never. Every now and then I'll still see Elizabeth Warren on television, and she'll be like, I have a proposal, and you're like, shut up, Pocahontas. No one cares about your dumbass proposal. This is the story. If you don't know it, the story was that Elizabeth Warren had been claiming to be a Native American for her whole career. And she didn't just like say it once or twice. Like, this bitch wrote a Native American cookbook. And this is true, she was listed as Harvard Law's first ever female professor of color. And Donald Trump just decided to troll the shit out of her.
And he didn't know anything. Like, he didn't have any insider information. He's just Trump. He runs off instinct. And he was just like, that bitch looks white. And so he just decided that every single day he was going to call her Pocahontas. And it drove her fucking crazy. He trolled her into taking a DNA test. And she took it. She didn't have to take it. No one put a gun to her head. He just made her so angry that she wasn't thinking straight, and she took it. He said at a press conference, he goes, "I will give Elizabeth Warren $1 million if she takes a DNA test." And she took it. She took it, and she made a video about it and put it on the internet. And she was like, "I took the DNA test, Donald Trump. You owe me $1 million." And then the next day, the reporters came up to Donald Trump and they were like, "Hey, Elizabeth Warren took the DNA test. Are you going to give her $1 million?" And he was like, "No." And then they just moved on. Like, that was it. Like, even the reporters were like, I mean, it's not a legally binding contract. We can't make him give her $1 million. And we got other shit to talk about. So they moved on. And Elizabeth Warren was just left having taken a DNA test in front of the world for no reason. And she did not do good on that DNA test. No, she did not do very good. No. She was so excited about getting the $1 million that she completely, like, didn't think about the fact that her score was bad. Like, really, really bad. She was less than 1/1000th Native American. Less than 1/1000th. And she's been claiming she was a Native American her whole life. And then she put up 1/1000th. You can't do that, right? You can't. You can't be 1/1000th Native American and say you're a Native American. Right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can.